In soul form, Gruhan realized that, I have been reincarnated as a sword. Through hundreds of long years, I have met many generations of masters, and I have turned them into heroes, whose names are etched in history. Then I met the comrade of my life, a boy born in the unknown village of Leonbeck. Together we traveled across the world, and achieved feats that no one could ever match. On a freezing day, lightning struck incessantly for a moment. The explosion created a violent tremor. He struggled to hold Gruhan tightly. He knelt down slightly, still trying to fight against the harshness. But waiting before his eyes was a ferocious evil dragon. Not letting the opponent rest, it began to roar. The situation forced him to stand up once more. At that exact moment, the evil dragon unleashed a massive surge of magic power. He did not hesitate to release his mana. With an explosive power, the attack was immediately dispelled by him. Then he broke into a smile. "Let's go, my friend." As soon as he finished speaking, he held the sword and charged straight at the target. The evil dragon only had time to see his determined figure. In the next moment, he leapt directly upward. The sword swing was aimed straight at the dragon's head. And then finally, the precise slash was unleashed. When we defeated the white dragon of the frozen mountains, my comrade became the ruler of a kingdom, and I became part of the legend of the Dragon Slayer. At that time he told Gruhan, "Please take care of my descendants," and this was remembered by him, passed down to the descendants of that comrade. Opening his eyes again was when Gruhan noticed a disturbance. Having just woken up, he felt very irritated. "Why is it so noisy?" But just a minute later Gruhan exclaimed, "So distracting. Which insolent person dares to shake this body?" Meanwhile Adrian was shouting, "From now on, the master of this sword is me." Others hurriedly tried to stop him. "Your Highness," the soldiers earnestly advised, "that is an object that no one else, except for His Majesty, is allowed to touch. Please return it to its original place." Upon hearing these words, Gruhan appeared surprised. "What, Prince?" He immediately looked back at Adrian. "This pig is one." On the other hand, he continued to cause a scene. "Shut up. In this country there is nothing that I am not allowed to touch." This made it hard for Gruhan to believe. This can't be possible. Then he quickly activated judgment. "I must check with my own power." When the status board appeared, Gruhan was truly speechless. Looking at the name Leon Beck, "He really is the descendant of my comrade." However, he himself cried out in doubt, "A descendant of the Sword Saint, and yet has this kind of potential?" Adrian said resentfully, "As long as I have this thing, both His Majesty and those nobles," and his tone became full of indignation, "will no longer be able to ignore me." Seeing this, he felt even more disdainful. Truly a ridiculous fellow, daring to babble such arbitrary words. But he, not knowing better, shouted out, "O great dragon slayer, lend me your strength." Gruhan immediately replied, "Are you crazy? Why should I lend my strength to someone like you?" Despite that, Adrian continued to scream arrogantly for Gruhan. Just like that, he swung it wildly, terrifying everyone. "Prince Adrian, please calm down. You are not allowed to draw a sword in the royal palace." But the response to them was angry. "Shut up. How dare you order me? Do you want to die?" While running, he threatened, "Once I have the power of Gruhan in my hands, you pieces of trash will." At that moment, Adrian's body suddenly wobbled by accident. The blade pointed back toward him, and in the blink of an eye the tip drew closer and closer. The next second, the soldiers' faces turned pale. Adelia hurriedly covered her mouth to stifle a scream. The next second, a panicked cry rang out, "Your Highness!" In the midst of that situation, Gruhan was also in a state of panic. They urgently told each other to call the royal physician immediately, and when looking back at Adrian, he realized, "Is this bastard the one stabbed by the sword?" Suddenly, Gruhan's consciousness began to fade. "My vision is blurring." Though unwilling, he could only think that, at this rate, I will lose consciousness, for the first time in my life as a sword. If Prince Adrian succeeds to the throne, this kingdom will have no future. He didn't inherit a single bit of talent from the royal family, but he ranks first in arrogance. He has no capability, but his greed is the greatest in the kingdom. He is a stupid, lazy, and cruel pig. That is the first Prince Adrian Leonberg. Like a black cloud covering the future of the kingdom, After that, Prince was stabbed and wandered near death's door. Before waking up, a strange rumor began to spread. The servants started gossiping about Prince Adrian. Lately, he seems to have changed a bit, hasn't he? That's right, he no longer flips the dining table like before. He doesn't hang out with his gang of thugs anymore either, right? Then they began to mock him. Even the notorious first prince must know shame. Or is he just lying still because he's terrified? Just you wait and see. After a while, he'll be back to his old habits. In contrast, Adrian was in his room. However, the protagonist of the story, Prince Adrian, didn't care about those rumors at all. Can't believe His mind was now in total shock. Actually killed the descendant of my comrade and seized his body. Just then, an announcement came from outside. Your Highness, His Majesty has arrived. Please quickly adjust your attire to prepare to receive His Majesty. He frowned upon hearing that. No, that old man didn't even bother to visit when I was dying. Why show up all of a sudden now? The servant nearby hastily reminded, Your Highness, the royal knights, with keen ears, are standing very close by. She timidly said, Please be careful with your words. His teacher then appeared with a scowl. I heard you returned from the brink of death, but it seems that temperament of yours is still the same, isn't it? He casually ordered, You may leave. Anyway, His Majesty isn't expecting anything. However, Adrian was still bewildered. Who is this? Then his teacher suddenly questioned. We still have the bond of teacher and student, and yet now you pretend not to know me? These words made a part of him realize. Is he the teacher of this pig? Meanwhile, he continued to call out, Your Highness. Adrian hesitantly replied, My memory is all jumbled up. I feel like I remember who you are, but then again, maybe I don't. He immediately showed an expression of disbelief. Huh? Don't tell me. Just then, a voice interrupted them. His Majesty the King has arrived. Despite that, Adrian remained very indifferent. The king? He lazily thought to himself. Then he must be this bastard's father. But very quickly his eyes widened in shock. He's better than I thought. Before Adrian, the emperor stood there coldly. I thought that as time passed, the lion's blood had been diluted into the blood of a dog. He also acknowledged it himself while looking at the king. Perhaps that's not the case. The emperor suddenly spoke up. Looking at the way you don't even bother to greet your father, it seems surviving a brush with death still hasn't been able to change the person you are. His teacher immediately reported, Your Majesty, I have just heard that His Highness's memory is not intact. A soldier hastily exclaimed, Oh my God, what a disaster! But why did the royal physician not report such a serious matter to Your Majesty? Summon the royal physician to examine His Highness immediately. Afterward, Adrian was examined by the physician once more. Nonetheless, he remained certain. I could not find any abnormalities in His Highness's royal body at all. Then the royal physician offered a judgment. However, it is possible this is a temporary condition caused by mental shock. The emperor then suddenly muttered, memory loss, while he felt anxious as he realized it, but instead he spoke sarcastically. How very convenient. What if you say that you no longer remember anything now? Just like that, the emperor directly criticized him. Does that mean everything you have done until now never happened? Before he could understand, he continued. Sometimes people make wrong choices. People may commit actions condemned by the whole world. If they realize it afterward and never repeat the same mistake, then that can also be called a learning process. With disappointment, the emperor said sternly, But you have forgotten all of those things. Not stopping there, he reproached him. Because it has all become as if it never happened. So you haven't taken a single step forward from the mistakes of the past. Finally, the emperor declared, and in the future, you won't be able to make any progress either. At that point, his teacher hurriedly cut in, Your Majesty, please calm your anger. Despite that, Adrian was quite shocked. He's insulting me right to my face. Seeing him turn away, he inwardly cursed, Damn it, I've really stepped in it. Wait, forget being treated like a prince. It seems I'm not even considered a human being anymore. Then Adrian looked back at this body. Just what kind of life did this kid live? At that moment, he was suddenly pulled away quickly. The queen immediately took him in her arms and comforted him. I I have heard everything. You must be very confused. Your memory will return soon. She even squeezed him tighter. No, that mediocre past. What does it matter if you don't remember it? Next, the queen said gloomily, I can't believe your beautiful face has become this haggard. My poor son. Adrian shivered after hearing that. Where exactly am I haggard? In return, she forced a smile. Regardless, I am very happy that you were able to open your eyes and wake up like this. At this point, the queen gently advised, you absolutely must not touch dangerous objects like that ever again, okay? If something bad had happened and you hadn't woken up again. Before speaking, she bit her lip bitterly. Then the queen sadly continued, I truly dare not imagine it. Adrian felt a bit guilty. I'm sorry, but your son is already dead. Just like that, his confusion lasted until nightfall. This is truly a burden. It took a long time before the queen let him be. I will visit you again. Get some rest and get well. Thanks to that, Adrian could finally breathe a sigh of relief. And taking this opportunity, he reflected on everything. My comrade begged me to take care of his descendants. And yet, I ended up killing one. Even if it wasn't intentional, I am the one who ended his life. The more he thought, the more pensive he became. Since things have already turned out this way, what else can I do? I must live well for the sake of the deceased as well. Then, Adrian made up his mind, having reincarnated as a sword. I spent my whole life cleaning up other people's messes. Though this is a fat body with no talent, it doesn't matter. With that thought, his fists clenched tight. I just need to rebuild my strength. He smirked with great confidence. Do you have any idea how many children I have raised? Without further hesitation, Adrian jumped up. First, I need to forge a mana heart. He took a deep breath to absorb some mana, then concentrate and converge them into a small energy source. The mana flared up as bright as a flame. However, in the next second, it vanished. Adrian himself was so shocked that his face went blank. Fear washed over him, making him break into a sweat. The mana has been dispersed. This body cannot accept it. Then Adrian hurriedly gathered mana once again. This time he original grit his teeth. Let's try to hold onto them one more time. His entire body surged with the flow of magic again. However, the final result caused him to collapse. Panting, Adrian cursed under his breath. What kind of devilish body is this? Right now, Adrian screamed in despair. If I had my original body, I could easily modify this constitution by forcing mana inside. Just then, a knock on the door rang out again. Your Highness, forgive me for the intrusion. As she entered, the servant brought a bowl of hot medicine. This is a special restorative medicine sent by the queen. It might be a little bitter, but it will be very good for your body. She tried to remain calm and said, so please think of the queen's kind heart. Having finished her words, the servant showed a terrified expression. In her mind, she recalled the past. I hope he doesn't throw the bowl like last time. At that time, Adrian had shouted at me, I told you I'm not taking any medicine. But the current Adrian was very surprised that he immediately saw the mana, contains mana. Then Adrian decisively took the bowl of medicine. He took a deep gulp and quickly drained it. This action made the servant look at him in astonishment. On the other hand, he roughly handed back the bowl. Are you satisfied now? Now go. At that request, she hurriedly replied, Yes, Your Highness, while Adrian quickly focused back. Good. Now once again. His eyes snapped shut, channeling all the mana into his hands. Feeling better, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's working. However, Adrian was still concerned. The amount of mana is still not enough, and it's so little that it will vanish after only one day. But thinking that, he quickly called the servant. Hey. She also responded immediately. Yes. He didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Do you have any more of that stuff? A few days later, the mana Adrian produced was more than before. Only then did he smile with satisfaction. Finally, he immediately exclaimed, Finally, I can create a mana heart. The energy source then pressed into his heart. I have done this countless times before. Something like a mana heart, I can do it with my eyes closed. Suddenly, Adrian's face darkened for a beat. The sensation was so real that he suddenly realized it hurt so much. Thinking back, in his mind, he briefly remembered previous descendants. It really hurts. It feels like my internal organs are on fire. My chest feels like it's about to explode. At this point, Adrian suddenly realized, that's right, the act of creating a mana heart. He struggled to take every breath. was always meant to be this painful. But Adrian bit his teeth shut. I must not lose consciousness. Thinking of the worst-case scenario, he immediately told himself, if I faint now, I will suffer from a mana backflow. Lost in it, he tried to close his eyes to maintain his composure. His hands held his heart as he constantly told himself, must focus. When the time is right, Adrian tightened his grip, seizing the mass of mana that was trying to run wild. No need to rush. At the same time, he regulated the mana flow himself, following the path flowing along the heart toward the right side. And gradually, everything became as still as the water's surface, slowly letting the new heart absorb it. Adrian himself slowly absorbed them. A moment later, he slowly opened his eyes to check. Noticing it was stable, he joyfully exclaimed, all right. Adrian was even very excited. This time, it's not a mana heart made for someone else, but a mana heart of my own and for me alone. With this pride, he shouted loudly, I did it, it's finished. While he was celebrating, the system board suddenly appeared. I have successfully created a mana heart. Because of the surprise, his face went blank for a few minutes. Then Adrian paused for a moment. Is this a status window? To verify it, he even tried to touch it. It's identical to the status notifications that I used to send to my masters back when I was a sword. Why is it appearing to me at this time? At the same time, the system suddenly activated. What? Wait a minute. In the next second, he was surrounded by countless notifications. What on earth is this? In the end, the system granted clairvoyance and clairaudience. Hearing this, Adrian asked doubtfully, powers? At that moment, his vision suddenly zoomed in. Adrian could even observe every single leaf. Indeed, I can see much more clearly than before. Not only that, he could faintly hear several voices inside. The sound. Can't I hear what is being said? Everything outside is reaching my ears. Don't you know his personality? He probably caused a massive scene already. Adrian appeared surprised. I can even hear the noises outside the door as well. However, he was soon interrupted by a headache. The system also promptly alerted that mana was depleted. Adrian suddenly realized, so that's it. So this is the meaning of extremely limited? At the same time, he felt quite regretful, detecting everything in every direction, without a single blind spot. The absolute sense I possessed back when I was a sword has disappeared now. Standing in the middle of the large room, he thought to himself, currently, by scraping together this tiny bit of mana, as small as a rat's tail, I can only eavesdrop on sounds outside the door, or see things slightly more clearly. Adrian reassured himself, perhaps things will change when I expand the mana pool. First, as soon as he finished speaking, his stomach let out a long growl. His mood worsened accordingly. I'm hungry. The servant quickly responded. Food will be brought up immediately. In return, Adrian was telling himself, first of all, I need to focus on adapting to this human body. Not long after the meal, the queen walked in looking radiant. Truly commendable. She constantly praised, you drank every last bit of it, not leaving a single drop of the medicine this mother sent you. Finally, you have understood how to cherish your own body. Just then, someone appeared and the queen suddenly said, oh, that's right. She then asked him, do you recognize who this is? Adrian immediately denied, no. Hearing that, she anxiously told Bill, it seems he really has lost his memory, so you must help this child, little brother. Adrian heard this and faintly guessed. I was wondering who it was. Turns out it's the queen's younger brother. Meanwhile, the queen was persuading him. After all, isn't he your only nephew? On this side, Bill only smirked and said, it's as if he just lost something very important. Regardless, it wasn't exactly a pleasant past. He immediately judged. Just by looking, it's clear that he doesn't like me. In return, he began to speak sternly. Let me make one thing clear. Bill directly declared, all I can do for you is help get rid of some of that excess fat. Then he emphasized, I cannot give you anything beyond that, so give up on those useless expectations. The queen also hurriedly nodded. That alone is more than enough. Despite that, Bill repeated, don't you forget that sentiment. In the midst of that situation, only he remained bewildered, and facing Adrian was a terrifying glare from Bill. Upon reaching the training ground, he ruthlessly pushed him down. Then Bill sternly announced, from now on, eating and breathing, you must have my permission for everything. If you expect to be treated like a prince, then give up right now. Furthermore, he smirked sarcastically. Try your absolute best. Who knows, I might change my mind and teach you a bit of the swordsmanship, secret arts of our family. Adrian heard this and couldn't believe it. How ridiculous. To the instructor who taught the undefeated knight, and was the master of the founding king, who built this country, am I the one? Regardless. Bill continued to disparage him. Look at your fat shaking. You must be feeling very resentful. Suppressing his anger for now, he spoke up. Uncle, let's make a bet. Adrian faced him directly and proposed. Within half a year, I will make you acknowledge me. I must smash that arrogant look of his. At the same time, he set a condition. If I fail, I will do whatever you say, uncle. However, if I succeed, you must grant me one wish. Seeing this, Bill appeared interested. Interesting. Then he agreed. Fine. It's a deal. I should have at least one thing for entertainment, shouldn't I? However, it didn't take long before Adrian screamed, "This damn body!" He looked at himself and regretted it. I spoke too boldly, but without any hesitation. He immediately channeled mana into his legs. While jogging, Adrian thought, I have to use mana. For now, I will focus on burning the excess fat all over my body. As soon as he sensed it, Bill immediately gasped, that brat. Don't tell me just like that. He rushed to stop him. Adrian, you, Bill, intentionally slowed down to observe the mana flow around him. Next, he hastily asked, have you actually managed to create a mana heart? As for Adrian, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. This? Then he deliberately showed off. Yes, I just created it a moment ago. What is it? Do you regret making the bet? However, the response to him was a scolding. What the hell were you thinking when you went and created a mana heart like that? Bill hurriedly questioned further. No, forget that. Where on earth did you learn the method to forge a mana heart? Look at you. It seems you don't even know what you've done. Wrong. Adrian was extremely confused. Mana heart. But the next words shocked him deeply. It is a crude technique that only low-class mercenaries would learn. The words stammered out of his mouth. Adrian couldn't help but scream. What? Adrian broke into a sweat from fear. Truly the end of an era. The previous words echoed in his head. The mana heart is just a primitive technique that only low-level mercenaries learn. Adrian's face was a mix of bewilderment and astonishment. Regaining his composure, he hurriedly asked, what exactly do you mean? Bill immediately replied, it'll be faster if I show you directly. As soon as he finished, he created a ring of mana. Look closely. His eyes widened in amazement. Mana in the shape of a ring? The next second, he threw the ring at him. Just by touching it, it shattered Adrian's magic power. While explaining, the mana chain has the property of breaking the sword chi of a mana heart. Furthermore, it is much easier and more stable than a mana heart. He even mentioned, even the Li clan, those who stubbornly clung to the mana heart, completely collapsed 100 years ago. Nowadays, no one tries to use a mana heart anymore. Adrian was now glued to the book. Times have truly changed. He quickly looked through each piece of information. Mages use circles, while knights weave chains to gather mana. The realm of a knight is divided by the number of woven chains: 1 chain, 2 chain, 3 chain, 4 chain, and 5 chain. Reading this, Adrian immediately judged. I think it's not exactly useless trash. Suddenly, he muttered a name. Enshingen? Huh? I feel like I've heard this name somewhere before. Very quickly, Adrian recalled an old memory. Just like that, he began to reminisce about a long time ago. Back then, Ernest had spoken up. Are you that famous sword saint? He picked him up and declared, my name is Ernest Tan Chingen. I've come here to see who is more worthy of the title of sword saint. The details were still clearly remembered by Adrian. There was once a guy who sought me out using a strange dark art. It was neither swordsmanship nor magic. Following that, he suddenly smiled. No wonder the name sounds familiar. Adrian himself felt a bit of curiosity. So what happened to that guy in the end? The next morning, the new day began as usual. As always, Adrian went to the field to warm up first. At that moment, Bill suddenly asked, did you read that book last night? As he walked over, he said, you must have grasped the situation by now. How incredibly stupid your choice was. However, Adrian just casually shrugged. Then he calmly replied, I don't feel like I was wrong. Not even a little bit. Seeing that, he let out a sigh. Do you refuse to admit it, or do you still not understand the situation? In return, Adrian still confidently showed off his mana. Not all mana hearts are the same, he confidently declared. The so-called difference in class. Have you ever heard of it, uncle? Despite that, Bill remained very disdainful. And I was wondering what you were babbling about. He then told him a story. Occasionally, among the mercenaries, people like you also appear, those who are delusional, thinking they are some hero from several centuries ago. Do you know what their end was? Bill emphasized their fate. They all fell, without even being able to overcome 2 circles. He also conveniently provoked him. If you are different from them, try defeating a 2-chain knight and see. Bill smirked smugly. Then I will become your guardian, as your mother wishes. Facing him, Adrian calmly replied, having you as a guardian, would that really be a good thing for me? I'm not so sure about that. Just like that, the atmosphere between the two immediately turned cold. After a moment of silence, Bill suddenly asked, did you just doubt my qualifications as a guardian? Along with that, he unleashed his aura. I am a count of the kingdom, and the commander-in-chief of the Northern Army. Immediately after, Bill stomped his foot heavily, master of the Black Spear Cavalry, and one of the 5 silver lions serving his majesty. The pressure around him immediately exploded. A man who has woven 4 circles. Bill's eyes glowed brightly. A 4-chain knight. He raised his voice in a threatening tone. Bill, Benhart, that is the name of the man who might stand behind you. Adrian, on his side, seemed to be pushed back. Is that qualified enough? At the same time, the royal knights began to move. Their swords were drawn decisively from all sides. Bill was quickly surrounded. Stand down, Count Benhart. Despite that, he only replied with a smug face. Meanwhile, Adrian also smirked. Don't you go back on your word later. A while later, he was so tired he lay on the ground. That's enough for today. Because training ended, Adrian was finally able to rest for a bit. However, his body was still trembling. I almost died for real. In his head, Adrian suddenly remembered Bill, daring to challenge me. Did you think you'd get my recognition with just that much guts? 2-chain? You'll be lucky if you can even defeat a 1-chain. While thinking, he cursed under his breath. That devil-like bastard. When he returned to his room, someone suddenly greeted him, Your Highness. I have been waiting for you. Adrian immediately exclaimed, the royal physician. He also replied cautiously, I am very grateful that you still remember this humble person. In return, he asked him in a daze, why is the royal physician here? The royal physician quickly explained, the queen, Her Highness has ordered me to use healing magic on you. After he finished, he gently invited him, come. Your Highness, please come this way. However, Adrian objected immediately. No, without any hesitation, he dismissed him. I don't need it, so get out now. Next, Adrian cursed under his breath. Are you trying to make all the hell I went through today go to waste? Huh? Cast, standing nearby, looked at him with apprehension. A few days later, today is still a beautiful day. However, Jillian aggressively barged in. Oh, royal brother, are you here as well? As soon as they met, he showed an arrogant attitude. Adrian, who was eating, had to pause, putting the last bite into his mouth. He wondered, who is this guy again? At that moment, Cast reminded him, that is the 3rd prince, Your Highness. Adrian was quite surprised to hear that. Is that the 3rd prince? As for Jillian, he casually continued, I heard you had an accident, but you look better than I thought. What a pity. He only indifferently replied, so what are you trying to say? Did you come here just to cause trouble? Being a prince must leave you with a lot of free time. This comment made him scowl. What right does a fool who stabbed himself with a sword have to speak? But putting that aside for a moment, Jillian calmly said, I just heard some interesting news. His tone gradually became sarcastic. I heard you made a bet with Count Benhart about fighting a 2-chain knight. At the same time, Jillian smirked at the idea. Without any hesitation, Jillian proposed, how about if your opponent is me? After that challenge, Adrian only nodded, so that's it. Even so, he was still quite annoyed. What the hell was that guy just now anyway? Why are the descendants of the Leon Beck house all like that? At this, Cast explained once more, the third prince, your highness. Jillian has been famous for his talent in swordsmanship since childhood. He immediately asked back in surprise. What, that brat? To that question, Cast then said, he managed to weave 2 circles when he was only 14 years old. Indeed, that is very fast. Adrian had to exclaim upon hearing that. Is that so? Suddenly a servant rushed in to report, Your Highness, I apologize for the interruption, but she brought a stack of letters and said, there are these letters sent to you. Adrian's gaze immediately turned suspicious. Letters? People who never bothered to pay attention to this body before are suddenly doing so. While looking through the letters, his eyes narrowed slightly. Adrian continued to remain silent, making them very curious. Meanwhile, he slowly read the words in the letters. I beg your forgiveness for the previous incident. Your Highness, I humbly request a duel. If your Highness still has difficulty finding a dueling opponent, please grant that opportunity to me first. Then, Adrian quickly concluded. In short, this is an opportunity to beat up a scoundrel. Legally, that's what they mean, isn't it? A surge of anger made him scowl. Seems I've become an easy target, haven't I? Then Adrian immediately called out, hey. She reacted quickly, yes? At this point, he angrily issued a request. The ones who just sent these letters, record all of their names for me. After that meal, today Bill suddenly tossed out a sword. Adrian looked at him with confusion. Bill didn't beat around the bush and got straight to the point. Pick up the sword. Next, he explained. You have to know a little swordsmanship for the bet, to even be valid, right? I don't want to hear any excuses, that you lost because you weren't taught the basics. Seeing this, he thought while picking up the sword, he could have just handed it over nicely. What a strange personality. At that moment, Adrian suddenly shuddered. His whole body began to tremble. My muscles ache so much. Bill quickly noticed as well. Wait, he held him back and asked, You didn't receive healing magic? In return, Adrian answered with surprise. As a knight, you should know this well, uncle. He casually pointed out the issue. Healing magic only restores muscles to their original state. It doesn't help them develop. Hearing this, Bill nodded in understanding, I see. Then he returned to his stern expression. Fine. Anyway, that's not what I intended to talk about today. Bill immediately drew his sword. I won't repeat this many times, so look closely. He simultaneously channeled mana into it. This is the technique that the kingdom's knights learn to build their foundation. The kingdom's training sword. In an instant, the sword's movement slowed down. At the right moment, Bill's eyes widened sharply. Each sword strike was immediately swung with absolute decisiveness. Furthermore, he spun around and swung the sword to the left. Then he changed direction and delivered a slash to the right. Finally, he gripped it tightly and raised the sword high. For the finishing blow, Bill swung down a strike that tore through the wind. The surrounding dust was instantly blown away by the trajectory of the sword. While Adrian stood there, his face blank with shock. Gradually, he spoke up and asked, Just now, did you just say, that is the swordsmanship knights learn to build their foundation? Because he was seen through. Bill clicked his tongue in annoyance, but he quickly admitted it. Since it's a training sword style, it might lack sharpness, but it is very loyal to the basics. So there's no better swordsmanship for a beginner. With your talent, it might even be a bit too much for you. As soon as the words left his mouth, Bill suddenly heard laughter from this side. Adrian was holding his face and laughing loudly. No matter how much time passes, he was remembering old memories. The Dragon Slayer, the great swordsmanship, that once decapitated even the Mad Dragon. As he thought about it, he found it unbelievable. Is being considered a mediocre training.
Sword technique?
Meanwhile, Bill spoke up to remind him, of course, this alone won't be enough to win the bet. After you master the basics, you can ask your mother to hire another teacher, or however. He cut him off immediately. No need. No. Adrian bluntly declared, I will not learn any other swordsmanship, because this alone is enough. Before that determined look, Bill slightly raised an eyebrow. In the end, he only indifferently said, do whatever you want. Just like that, Adrian continuously practiced swinging his sword. At the same time, he reflected, the fact that Dragon Slayer swordsmanship is now considered a mediocre training technique. Adrian looked up, his face drenched in sweat. Though I don't want to admit it, perhaps it is just a natural phenomenon. He soon realized one thing. because that Dragon Slayer sword is missing the will to slay dragons. Next, he concluded, those who discarded the mana heart and forgot how to channel their will into the sword, how could they have the eyes to recognize the true value of the Dragon Slayer? At that moment, Bill suddenly blocked his sword. This unexpected action left Adrian stunned. On the other hand, he gave dedicated instruction. Power isn't transferred to the sword just because you tense your arms. Already, forgotten what I taught you? While instructing, Bill poked his stomach. Focus your strength in your core. Next, he struck Adrian's leg sharply. And your legs too. That bit of pain made him drop to his knees. That's right. Channel strength correctly throughout your whole body. Only then can you use the sword. Despite that, he focused on absorbing the lesson. Right? Adrian quickly stood up. Even though my current body is just a weak and clumsy shell that can't even properly mimic a knockoff Dragon Slayer style. Yet, with a determined will, he gripped the sword tightly. But I will prove that the Dragon Slayer sword style is not some pile of useless scrap to be discarded like a pair of old torn shoes. In the time that followed, his footsteps gradually became stronger. 1 day, 2 days, today Adrian continues his run. 3 days after running, he practices basic sword swings again. A week has passed. In addition, he never stops training his mana. And then a month passed. At the moment he was pushing himself, the system suddenly reported progress. Adrian immediately froze as it continuously updated. Along with that, his posture became more refined. His sword strikes became much more sharp and agile. And the more he practiced, the more excited Adrian became. He unconsciously immersed himself in the sword, more naturally than a month ago. Suddenly, voices around him rang out, "Stop!" However, Adrian completely ignored them, stronger than yesterday. His eyes at that time were fixed intently on the blade. Bill still tried to call out for him to stop, but he continued to swing the sword more perfectly than before. It wasn't until he shouted loudly that he snapped out of it. "Did you not hear me tell you to stop?" His sword simultaneously shattered and fell everywhere. In the middle of the pouring rain on the field, only 3 people remained. In Adrian's hand, red blood began to spread. It even dripped down, staining the rainwater. Only then did Adrian look blankly at his uncle. Then his eyes unconsciously looked forward, hitting Adrian's sight. The wooden stake had been burnt to a cinder under the cold rain. The wooden post was still emitting hot steam. Because of the surprise, Adrian stood frozen on the spot. Bill, standing beside him, exclaimed, "You stupid fellow, practicing on a day like this? If that were a real sword, you wouldn't have survived." His scolding made him slowly look back. Only now did Adrian notice his calloused hands. Next, he heard the system notification. Super concentration has been created. Unable to hold back his emotions, Adrian suddenly burst out laughing, but exhaustion immediately pulled him down. Focusing twice more, and I'd probably be struck dead by lightning. When Cass saw him faint, he rushed over. "Your Highness." In contrast, Bill was looking at Adrian with a suspicious gaze. Even though he had fainted, he still muttered a scolding. "Stupid brat." Time passed quickly. After a while, Adrian opened his eyes. As soon as he woke up, he hurriedly sat up. "Did I just faint?" At that moment, he sighed tiredly to himself. "I don't know where the limits of this body are. As a sword, I achieved every possible accomplishment in the world. Nameles va hero. Sword saint, mercenary king, founding contributor, leading wars to victory, elevating the level of both body and soul. I guided the path for the heroes of Ruhan, a wise advisor and an excellent teacher, but an existence that always stood on the sidelines like a third party, returning to reality." Adrian observed his own burnt hand. He immediately recalled the feeling from before. "That is why I swung the sword, until I reached that realm, immersed in the sensation of turning all the sweat, effort, and the fruits of labor into my own." Adrian's hand tightened slightly. "At this rate, this weak body will soon collapse. I need to balance my mind and body." With this thought, he quickly closed his eyes. "It has been over a month since I formed the mana heart. I have accumulated quite a lot of mana since then, so perhaps I will soon move to the next stage." Alright, as soon as he finished, the mana flow began to rise, and his mana heart simultaneously became clearly visible. The flames surrounding it immediately burned brightly, from a pale blue it transformed into a denser blue light. In the next second, Adrian restrained it within his hand. The muscles in his body developed simultaneously. Even his bones were granted additional sturdiness. When the process ended, Adrian instantly opened his eyes. Feeling the changes clearly, he cried out in joy, "It's done." Immediately, his eyes shifted to the sword. "Let's see." Adrian didn't hesitate to pick it up. When he tried a single swing, the system promoted him to apprentice swordsman. Holding the sword in his hand, he felt more confident now. "With this, I can master the basics now." On that same day, Bill suddenly brought up a topic. "Rumors are spreading throughout the kingdom." Adrian appeared surprised. "Rumors?" At this time, Bill clicked his tongue in exasperation. "About your bet. Thanks to it, even I am feeling extremely bothered." Then he urged, "Wouldn't it be better if you quickly found an opponent for a duel?" Hearing this, he let out an "Oh, that matter?" Very quickly, Adrian returned to a devious look. "As for the opponent, I have already decided who it will be." By the way, he further probed, "More importantly, Uncle, it will be very difficult for me to face someone using 2-chain immediately, so how about I fight a few 1-chain users first?" Bill immediately replied, "That depends on you." Having received the answer, Adrian turned to Cast. "Cast, how is the thing I asked for going?" To that question, he quickly took out a piece of paper. "Yes, Your Highness, I have arranged it as you requested. This is the list of those who sent requests to challenge Your Highness to a duel." At the same time, Cast was a bit worried. "However, Your Highness, do you really intend to practice with them?" In contrast, Adrian casually asked, "What if I do?" He also carefully analyzed. "Most of these people hold a grudge against Your Highness. They might intentionally harm you under the guise of a duel, hand-to-hand." However, Adrian was not afraid, "I know." Therefore, he casually proposed, "You be the referee for me." Uncle, not wanting to make it hard for him, Adrian said, "I'm not asking for anything major. Just prevent anyone from dying during the match. You can help me with this small favor, right?" A few days later, the day of the first match, Taylor marveled as soon as he arrived. Before his eyes was a magnificent grand tower, the first prince's palace, where that scoundrel lives. Then he began to share, "My name is Taylor Theohem, the second son of an ordinary baron family. A few years ago, Adrian once mocked him. Look at that chaotic mess." He bluntly mocked them. "From the attire to the attitude, he reeks of a country bumpkin. Look at him, getting excited just because he was invited to a royal banquet. Indeed, this is what fueled your resentment. My father and brother had to suffer humiliation that can never be erased by that scoundrel of a prince." Taylor's gaze immediately darkened. "The family's honor fell into the abyss, while my father and brother became the laughingstock of the nobility. Even to this day, Adrian Leon Beck." And so, he stepped onto the field with determination. "Today, I will make you pay a heavy price for that day. I offer my greetings to Your Highness, the first prince, Adrian Leon Beck." Taylor introduced himself sternly. "I am Taylor, the second son of the Tellum family. I am a 1-chain apprentice knight, and the successor to the Tellum family swordsmanship." But in response to him, he only exclaimed, "Good grief. Why so formal for just a practice match? It's not like this is an official duel." Adrian even wondered, by the way, is he really a knight? He looks so incredibly weak. This time, Taylor was also fuming. Just as the rumors say, he is both rude and arrogant. He doesn't know his place and lacks knowledge. In general, right then, Bill intervened. "That's enough." He came beside him and reminded him, "I understand how you feel, but the match hasn't started yet. Rein in your aura." Upon seeing Bill, his eyes lit up. "Count Benhart." Taylor hurriedly bowed. "It is truly an honor to meet you." In return, he also politely replied, "Yeah, nice to meet you." Adrian, nearby, let out a sigh. "People might think my uncle is the prince." Bill casually rebuked him. "You should have behaved more decently in the past." These words made him somewhat annoyed. "Goodness, you always bring up the past." Next, he stood in the middle, signaling, "Both of you take your positions. Let the match begin." Taylor immediately grew serious while Adrian remained indifferent. In the next second, his mana chain rose up powerfully. He curled the corner of his mouth at the same time. "Well then, Your Highness." Raising his voice in warning, Taylor rushed forward. "Please be careful." In a flash, he leaped from where he stood. Taylor's entire body followed the sword, aiming straight at Adrian. On this side, he only calmly remarked, too many redundant movements. Next, Adrian easily blocked Taylor's strike. Only now did he realize this is a mana heart. Before he could regain his composure, he was flung back by him. Taylor exclaimed in panic, "A mana heart? How can it block a mana chain?" On the other hand, he was telling himself, "Is it because he only has one circle?" Adrian began to channel his mana now. "It only feels a bit numb." The change in aura left him astonished. The soldiers were also stunned. The sound coming from the sword, that is, as for Bill, he quickly recognized it, sword resonance. In that situation, Taylor suddenly muttered, "Impossible." In a fit of rage, he ran to attack. This simply cannot be happening. Because of the sudden action, he was a bit startled. However, Adrian agilely defended in time. The opponent frantically unleashed moves, forcing him to take a step back. And immediately after, the blades clashed powerfully again. The difference in power sent Taylor sliding across the arena. At this point, both took a distance for a moment, each breathing heavily. Adrian thought to himself, "They say circle. Mana is incompatible with heart. Mana, that saying is indeed correct." Touching his heart, he smirked. "I feel like a mana backflow could happen at any moment." And then he began to speak. "However, you said you are the second son of Baron Tellum." This time Adrian directly provoked him. "You need to cool down that hot head of yours a bit." Finishing his words, he quickly closed his eyes. Focus on the senses, his vision immediately changed, plunging Adrian into deep water. Seizing this opportunity, he reached out, awaken, and step by step, Adrian drew closer to the evil dragon. Whether a magic sword, a holy sword, or countless other names. The moment he touched it, a flash of light, a part of my soul. The sleeping evil dragon glared at the same time, while Adrian merged with it bit by bit. The memories of the sword from its last activation, and the essence of the heart crafted to slay dragons. Along with the notification from the system, the Dragon Slayer heart beats once. In just a fleeting second, the gaze, Adrian's eyes turned crimson. The evil dragon now surrounded him, forged for the purpose of exterminating dragons. This is the true power of the Dragon Slayer sword. As for Taylor, the murderous intent from the dragon was threatening him. Fear washed over him, making him tremble. What on earth is that? On the other hand, Bill shouted a warning. Stop. However, Adrian had lost his reason and rushed straight ahead. Seeing Adrian's appearance, he soon realized that sword was very dangerous. Returning to earlier, he had suddenly made a request. "Uncle, I have a favor to ask before we start the practice match." Bill immediately looked over. "What is it?" Adrian calmly said, "If it looks like I'm about to kill my opponent." At this moment, Bill touched his sword. Then, in the blink of an eye, he closed in on him. "You must stop me, Uncle." Bill immediately knocked Adrian back, sending him crashing into the stone wall. Then he continued to stand as a shield in front of Taylor. As for Adrian, he seemed to lose consciousness after that blow. However, Bill himself had swords pointed at him. The surrounding soldiers immediately questioned his crime. "Count Benhart, what have you done?" Depending on the circumstances, you could be accused of assassinating royalty. But he spoke up to explain. "Stand down. I was the one who asked my uncle to do that." Hearing this, Cast was stunned. "Your Highness?" In return, Adrian struggled to wipe the blood from his mouth. "I indeed made that request to him, and in the end he still collapsed. I never told you to knock me unconscious." This made them cry out in a hurry. "Your Highness!" After the battle, the Dragon Slayer heart gradually calmed down. He finally breathed a sigh of relief. "I really thought my mana heart was about to shatter." At the same time, Adrian reflected. "My uncle's strength is truly on a different level compared to those nameless one-chains, and I took that hit head-on with satisfaction." He smiled. "Fortunately, there don't seem to be any long-term side effects, but it still hurts like hell." Then he turned smug. "Anyway, everything turned out fine. After all, I won the match." Right then, Bill spoke up again. "What are you smiling about?" Adrian turned toward him blankly. "Yes?" Seeing him, he asked curiously, "What wind blew you all the way here?" In contrast, Bill questioned him immediately. "What on earth did you do?" His tone was extremely harsh. "What the hell was that wicked sword? I never taught you that kind of swordsmanship." However, he still answered seriously. "I was merely being loyal to the essence of the sword, that's all." This answer made him frown. Daring to speak of the essence of the sword, when you haven't even experienced experienced real combat. But Bill gradually relaxed. So, the essence of the sword, as you understand it, is murderous intent. No matter how brutal and unpleasant it may be, it is still a truth. This time, Adrian suddenly pouted. That's quite a surprise. He casually mocked him. I thought you were going to lecture me that the way of the sword is the perfection of the blade itself or something, and then go on a long, tedious rant. On the other hand, Bill bluntly declared, I am a soldier, not a knight. I am one who walks the path of victory, rather than the path of righteousness. Immediately after, he continued. However, Bill reminded him sternly, your sword has gone too far. If your murderous intent is too great, you won't be able to distinguish between friend and foe. Seeing this, he deliberately looked away. And that is why you are making such a big deal out of it, right? To fix it? At this point, he also declared, I will watch over you. I will see whether or not you are devoured by the demon within your heart. And after the 3 days of practice matches ended, the sword suddenly tapped loudly on the ground. Adrian suddenly started a conversation. You said your name is Taylor Tellum, right? He then praised him with full sincerity. Well done over these past 3 days. In Adrian's heart, he thought he had to block sword strikes, filled with unrestrained murderous intent, for 3 whole days. Indeed, he had to endure a lot. Then he continued to guess, but it's quite a pity, isn't it? You would likely feel much better if you had at least defeated me once, but you couldn't. Taylor, on his side, only hesitated that. Before he could answer, Adrian called someone over. Bring that over here. With the chest in the maid's hands. Taylor was surprised. Your Highness, what is this? He also quickly explained. I heard that I did some terrible things to you in the past. I don't know if this can make up for it. Adrian sent along a message. But take this back to Baron Tellum. It's nothing much, just a bit of gold and a letter. That finished, he coolly walked away immediately. Now go, have a safe journey. In his mind, Adrian was thinking, one is not obligated to clean up the mess caused by that bastard. But right at that moment, Taylor exclaimed, thank you, Your Highness, while he continued to convince himself. Anyway, if you make someone work, you have to pay them appropriately. Just like that, the scoundrel prince's practice matches became a hot topic of conversation within the kingdom. His arrogance has dug his own grave. Many people were gossiping excitedly. The first prince will surely pay a heavy price for his past mistakes. I wonder how much humiliation he'll have to endure. However, despite waiting for many days, the news everyone expected still didn't arrive. Being questioned, Taylor was quite surprised. You all are asking how the match went? Along with him, countless people excitedly shared. It seems there's some kind of misunderstanding here. The first prince is not as terrible as the rumors say. Both sides gave their all in the match. That's all a threat? I simply understood His Highness's true heart, that's all. This left the majority of people agape in shock. What is going on? Surely the royal family has silenced them. Only Adrian slammed the table in anger. When the person involved heard this news, silenced my foot, he shouted in frustration. They are only keeping their mouths shut out of embarrassment, because they lost to me. He even muttered, these nobles really have too much free time on their hands. They should do something more useful with their time. Wouldn't you say, Bill? Nearby, Bill intentionally teased him. Are you even in a position to say that? Adrian ignored him. He immediately looked at the person he just sparred with. This time he carefully threatened, when you go out, remember to spread the match results too. Got it? Hearing that, he hurried to nod. I will do so. Thanks to that, he was somewhat satisfied. Now the rumors should settle down, right? However, before long, Adrian received shocking news. What? In front of him, the servant hesitantly said, well, there's a rumor that Your Highness threatened him to fabricate the match results. At that moment, he couldn't even utter a word. All his anger turned into training resolve. Forget it, just forget it. Let's just keep training, shall we? Adrian immediately delivered a perfectly precise slash. Not stopping there, he nimbly unleashed another strike. Then he quickly spun his body, gripping the weapon firmly with both hands. While channeling power into the blade, he swung it down. And even though it ended, the mana around it burned brightly. Adrian's heart hadn't completely dimmed yet. thinking about something. He suddenly asked how many challengers are left. Cast quickly replied, "The person coming today is the last one, sir." Adrian shook his head in boredom. "Those apprentice knights aren't enough for me anymore." As for Cast, he added more information. "However, this last person is a knight who has been formally trained in swordsmanship." In addition, Cast emphasized, someone who wasn't satisfied with only honing their family swordsmanship, but is a talent, who joined a knight order to train. His expression instantly brightened. "An apprentice knight of the Iron Lion Cavalry?" Right at that moment, On also arrived. On Kogen. The gate guards couldn't help but gossip. "It's her, right? Look at the Iron Lion emblem on her armor. It's definitely her." Following that, they whispered rumors to each other. "The flower on the cliff, the rose with thorns, the one who broke the hearts of so many young men." On this side, she continued to walk slowly. The soldiers continued to marvel. "She is indeed a peerless beauty. I didn't expect a woman like that to come here on her own." Suddenly, they uttered a sentence that made her stop. Looking at it from a certain perspective, the prince must have some talent too. On's gaze turned cold for a moment. Anyway, along with the judgmental voices, her stern demeanor became apparent. Wouldn't it be ridiculous if the prince was humiliated by that woman? The Iron Lion Knight Order, renowned as one of the top knight orders in the kingdom, in terms of both prestige and skill. An apprentice knight of this order, On Kogen, is a promising talent, who has already been confirmed to become an official member. The more he thought about it, the more Adrian found it hard to believe. Why would such a genius would seek me out for a duel? Cast hesitated. "Well, in the past, between your highness and Sir On, there was a small misunderstanding. However, he exposed himself, misunderstanding my foot with my personality. I must have been the one picking a fight unilaterally." Then he directly asked Adelia, "You over there, tell me, what did I do back then?" To Adrian's request, she replied awkwardly, "Well, your highness," and the next words were what truly horrified him. "You harassed Sir On." Adrian immediately clutched his head and wailed, "This crazy bastard." Following the memory, the former Adrian suddenly touched On. Next, he made her an offer. "Did you say your name is On? You are indeed as beautiful as the rumors say. What do you think? If you want, you can come work as my private maid." However, she immediately brushed his hand away. At the same time, On bluntly declared, "Your Highness, a knight is not your personal property." Because he was insulted, he angrily shouted, "You ugly thing." Having heard the story, he was completely speechless. "That is what I heard from the servants." Adrian slowly looked up. It sounds like the sick flirting of a rotten piece of scum. Now, in front of him, On stood there, because there was no way anyone looking at her could call her ugly. She was cold, yet beautiful in her own way. Immediately after, On took the initiative to speak. "Long time no see, your highness. You haven't changed at all." In return, he only stammered, "I don't think so. I've changed a lot, you know? To the point that the person inside is completely different now." However, the gaze from her was still very harsh. "Right, this is all my karma." At that moment, Adelia announced to them, "Count Benhart has arrived." As he passed by, On suddenly paused for a few seconds. "You are On?" She then introduced herself. "Apprentice Knight of the Iron Lion Knight Order. On Kogen pays respects to Count Benhart." Hearing that, he offered a warning. "Be careful, the prince's swordsmanship is quite brutal." Seeing this, he quickly complained, "Hey uncle, where did your observer's neutrality go?" In contrast, Bill seemed to ignore it and continued, "All right." With his signal, Adrian returned to an excited expression. On also grew serious. Both took their positions. Bill remained in the same spot and made the declaration. "From this moment, the duel begins." As soon as the words were out, she quickly gripped her sword. Noticing this, Adrian appeared very expectant. "Let's see the skill of the Iron Lion Seed." Just like that, he let On be the first to attack. Every movement was captured by his eyes. As expected, her movement is quite good. With the first strike, Adrian simply blocked it, but he was suddenly hit with pain. The mana is starting to flow backward. On began to frown. Behind the two swords, she applied more force, easily pushing Adrian back. Following that were rapid strikes that were vastly superior. On the other hand, Adrian gradually felt the danger. I'm being completely swept up in her fighting style. This won't do. In that moment, On rushed forward like a beast. He also quickly activated the Dragon Slayer heart. That unusual murderous intent unintentionally distracted her. Just like that, the sound of clashing swords rang out again. The difference was that On retreated on her own. She landed gently in a very masterful manner. Then, while breathing to regain her strength, On wondered, that sword. As for Adrian, he judged with satisfaction. It seems not every one chain is the same. You really are on a different level compared to the rest of the small fry. Seizing this chance, he suddenly activated judgment. However, all of On's stats immediately appeared before Adrian's eyes. After reading them, he quickly regained his spirit. The fact that I can see this information, with my limited powers. The next second, Adrian suddenly broke into a devious smile. Along with him, On also heightened her vigilance. That means she is either weaker or has power, equivalent to mine. In a flash, he rushed forward at great speed. Adrian's opponent reacted in the exact same way. As they charged at each other, he declared war on her. The real battle starts now. Just like that, the fight gradually left Adrian battered. On was no better, constantly gasping for breath. Around them, the sky had already begun to turn to dusk. At this point, Bill swung his sword to signal the end of the match. Then he issued a command. Stop, that's enough for today. We will continue the match tomorrow. Hearing that, Adrian clicked his tongue. I was just about to end it. In response, On confidently replied, what a coincidence. I was just about to do the same. But following his old habit, he immediately provoked her. Is that so? Wanna keep going? And On didn't hesitate to say, if you wish, for as long as it takes. However, Bill intervened again. Enough. He looked toward the physician. It's already late. Both of you go get treated immediately. Following those words, the physician excitedly approached him. Your Highness, let me treat you. Right as he was being healed, Adrian's gaze was fixed intently on her. Oh my, this spot is bruised too. He didn't need to hide it. He directly observed On, as if realizing it. She glanced back at him. However, both chose to ignore it and passed each other by. At the same time, they both thought the same thing. I absolutely will not lose. In the following days, the soldiers began to buzz with excitement. No one has been able to determine a winner yet. One person wondered, is this already the third day? While the person beside him marveled. To be honest, I'm quite surprised. He lowered his voice slightly to whisper. I've heard a lot about Lady On's skills, but the first prince's skills are equally impressive. Finally, they turned their attention to the training field. I hope we get a result today. At that moment, Adrian suddenly proposed. Before we fight the next round, I have something to say. On judged as soon as she heard it. Don't tell me you're planning to apologize now. She immediately spoke in a stern voice. I will not accept an apology. In return, Adrian only nodded. I understand you want to use your own strength to regain the self-esteem that was wounded. That is an admirable thought, but next he just shrugged. Oh, it's not about that. Then he casually broke into a smile. Since we are fighting so fiercely like this, shouldn't there be a reward? The next words immediately stunned them. The loser will have to grant one wish of the winner. Winner, what do you think? If told to kneel, you must kneel. And if told to kowtow and apologize, you must follow through. As for On, she hesitated and couldn't answer immediately. Other soldiers exclaimed, Your Highness is a member of the royal family. How can you say such things? Please take back those words. Adrian also immediately dismissed it. Outsiders shouldn't interfere. Why are there so many spectators anyway? Then he turned to ask her, what do you think? On very quickly gave her answer carefully. Even though I am just a lowly apprentice knight, I am also a member of a knight order, loyal to the Leonberg royal family. I wouldn't dare commit such an act of disrespect toward your highness. On's attitude quickly shifted. However, if that is what your highness permits, then perhaps I also have the right to receive the reward of the bet. This reaction made Adrian very satisfied. Good thinking. The next second, they charged at each other frantically. Don't go back on your word later. This time, Adrian attacked decisively, making the sound of the swords become ear-piercing. On was not to be outdone as she unleashed a wide-range strike. Suddenly finding an opportunity, his eyes flashed crimson for a moment. Without waiting for her to regain her composure, Adrian immediately brought down a strike. At that moment, On was stunned. Too fast. It wasn't this fast yesterday. and in her eyes he now looks absolutely frenzied. Could it be that he was hiding his true strength? Gradually, the initiative reversed, forcing her backward. On made only a tiny oversight. The blade almost grazed her. By the time there was some distance, the arena was a mess. On herself couldn't keep up and was extremely bewildered. In contrast, Adrian rushed forward, radiating murderous intent. Both of them simultaneously swung their swords to attack and block. In the end, one blade was knocked away. On collapsed helplessly with her weapon sliced in half. Also at the training ground, many soldiers were even more astonished. Even Bill stood frozen in shock. Meanwhile, she was still dazed. Impossible. Adrian's shadow stepped forward. On, I won the bet. At this, he pointed his sword at her and spoke. On Kogen I. The corners of Adrian's lips couldn't help but curl up. Then he directly issued his request. I want you. Meanwhile, Cast was sharing his thoughts. The position of royal guard for the first prince. The most notorious scum of the kingdom. Contrary to my worries, the job isn't that difficult. The first time they met, Adrian asked, are you the new royal guard? He bowed carefully. Yes, I look forward to serving you, your highness. In his heart, Cast silently assessed. The prince seems a bit arrogant. On the other hand, he only coolly said, all right, I'm counting on you. And he judged, but he didn't fly into a violent, senseless rage as the rumors suggested. Through each day of training, Cast focused on observing. The more he watched, the more he reflected. In reality, it is the exact opposite of the rumors. On that fateful day, Adrian was still swinging his sword despite the pouring rain. At this point, others began to worry. The rain is too heavy. Should we stop His Highness? Cast himself hurriedly cried out, Your Highness, be careful. Just as the words left his mouth, a bolt of lightning struck down from the sky. However, Adrian looked completely satisfied. Witnessing that emotion, he was completely stunned. In Cast's heart, he unconsciously affirmed, I have a feeling His Highness will become a great man. Gradually, the flashback returns to the present. That is what I used to think. Adrian then declared, I want you. At first, the soldiers were all agape in shock. How shameful! On this side, Cast, I began to have doubts. Did I misjudge him? As for On, she stood up bit by bit. She questioned him with an angry tone. Is that truly what your highness desires? Adrian replied casually, of course. With your current status, you are just a mediocre apprentice knight who couldn't even defeat a scumbag prince. At this point, he smirked again. So what I want is, Adrian said without hesitation, the potential and future of the knight named On Kogen. Furthermore, he seriously affirmed, I need a knight to follow me, not a knight to protect me, by royal decree. Hearing this, Cast suddenly flinched, while he continued to explain, but a knight who belongs only to me, and from what I've seen. Adrian looked back at the info panel and remarked, you have quite a talent for swordsmanship. His tone became more and more sincere. Therefore, On Kogen. Adrian repeated the offer, become my knight. In return, she suddenly recalled the past. I became the knight I always dreamed of being. But the gossip suddenly drifted to her ears. Is it that child? They all had the same thought, indeed just like the rumors. She has an incredibly striking appearance. And this made On feel angry. No one sees me as a knight, so I work twice as hard as everyone else. In every battle, she easily took down her opponents. Immediately followed by the familiar announcement, the winner, On Kogen. Despite that, On did not stop. Even after defeating every other apprentice member, she continued to swing her sword, completely overwhelming the target. Then On kept repeating that cycle, and showing those results. In the end, everyone judged, isn't she, On, our representative face? Protecting a beauty like her. On is the honor of a knight. Hearing that, she herself gradually gave up. I couldn't become a knight. Returning to the present, On's body trembled, but she looked straight at Adrian in disbelief. He wants my potential and my future. As a knight, full of doubt, she asked herself, is he being sincere? But very quickly, On spoke up. Please promise me one thing. She proposed slowly. Please treat me, not as a woman but as a knight. In addition, On was somewhat cautious. If you can do that, I will follow your highness's will. After finishing her words, Adrian just silently met her gaze. She didn't hide but waited for his response. And finally, he nodded quickly. All right, I promise. Having received the answer, On took a small step back, and under the sunset, she knelt directly before Adrian. At the same time, An made her vow, An, eldest daughter of the Kogen family, vow my loyalty to Prince Adrian Leonberg. Before everyone's witness, she continued, and dedicate my sword and the rest of my life to your highness. Bill also heard everything but remained silent. On the other hand, Adrian drew his sword, as the legitimate heir of Leonberg. In the name of Adrian Leonberg, I dub thee a knight. An bowed her head to receive his instructions. Be brave, be polite, along with the glowing red sky. He emphasized the final words, and be loyal. As time passed, An returned to her hard training. Several other soldiers began to gossip.
Sharing loyalty to 그스컴.
Isn't that absurd? Of course it is. And it was a vow based on a bet, no less. We must cancel it somehow. The other person just shrugged, but I heard that she refused our help. Next, the information suddenly became even more distorted. Good heavens, from what I've heard, doesn't it smell like something shady is going on? Could there be some kind of relationship with the prince? Perhaps he couldn't openly take her as a mistress, for fear of a bad reputation. So he used a knight's vow to cover it up. It felt strange from the very beginning. Why would she even go to a shady match, organized by that scum? When the news reached Adrian, he shouted, "This is driving me crazy. Am I some kind of villain?" He was even trembling with rage. I really am the worst scum in the world, aren't I? Huh? Cast, standing by his side, just watched silently. Suddenly, he called out in a low voice, "Your Highness." Cast immediately got straight to the point, about what you said that day, but he didn't understand yet. When? Seeing that, he reminded him a few days ago, on the day of the final duel. Adrian suddenly remembered after hearing that. Not a knight, who protects me by royal decree. Oh, that? He quickly explained. Does that bother you? It's the truth, though. If there was a royal decree right now, telling you to go somewhere else, wouldn't you go? Then Adrian began to tease. If you want, you can also make a vow later. Cast. On the other hand, he hesitantly made an offer. If I said that I would make the vow, would you accept it? But he immediately shook his head. No. At the same time, Adrian was blunt. I don't want to take you in, you're no fun at all. Cast burst out laughing happily at that. Is that so? In return, Adrian was thinking to himself, I'm not joking, I'm being serious. A moment later, in his hand was a notification letter. What did I do? Even Adrian felt bewildered. I didn't expect them to lift the house arrest. A month and a half early. In his mind, he briefly recalled that angry face. After acting as if they would lock me in the palace, the first prince's palace, and never see me again. Thinking this, he shook his head. I don't understand what that man is thinking anymore. Meanwhile, Cast asked curiously, aren't you happy that the house arrest is over, Your Highness? Adrian replied casually, I don't really care. Even if I leave the palace, I have nowhere to go, and no one to meet since I don't know anyone. As for Adelia, she suddenly flinched in shock. Then she awkwardly delivered the news. I'm sorry, I just saw an invitation sent to Your Highness. Adelia's attitude made him quite wary. An invitation? At this, she hurried to hand him the letter. Yes, it's this one. Adrian immediately took it and read through it. A social club for young nobles. Special? Adelia spoke up to explain. It's a social gathering that Your Highness used to be a member of. This time he showed his surprise. Me? Next, he wondered, is it a weird place? Faced with this question, she was quite embarrassed. Well, Adelia hesitantly recounted. To a woman like me, the elegant hobbies of young nobles are beyond comprehension. In return, he decisively dismissed it. So it's just gathering for drinking and women. Forget it, I'm busy enough with training. Why should I go to such a useless gathering? Suddenly Adrian's eyes caught sight of something. On the other side of the letter, a person named Ellie sent a respectful message. Then he gradually showed his concern. Ellie? Immediately, he recalled the information. That is a name I remember. According to my uncle, they are the family that resolutely pursued the mana heart to the very end, and finally declined 100 years ago. In the end, Adrian made a different decision. I suppose I should attend after all. Adelia quickly accepted. Understood. I will prepare your attire immediately. As for Adrian, he thought to himself, I hope that family hasn't completely lost its influence yet. Since possessing the body of the scumbag first prince, and starting weight loss training, for months have passed. The tailor exclaimed with excitement, "Your Highness, are you satisfied with the outfit? I didn't miss a single one of your instructions." He proudly introduced every detail. "The color is black." Looking at the new boots, he added, "The pattern is minimalist." His appearance greatly delighted the tailor, "And the design is simple. However, your majesty remains as grand as ever." "Your Highness," Adrian nodded while looking at himself. "I truly have lost a lot of weight." He immediately blurted out, "Your measurements have decreased by more than half." At this point, he casually said, "I'll leave the attire for the royal banquet. To you as well." Hearing that, the tailor's eyes lit up. "Then I shall start working on it right away." However, Adrian suddenly smiled, "Wait a bit longer. By then, my measurements will have changed again." And so, he set off for the party. A few days after the house arrest was lifted, "I am on my way to that damn special social club for young masters right now." Cast continued his role as a knight and took charge of protecting him. Inside the carriage, Adrian unconsciously let out a long yawn. Being a prince is truly an exhausting position. His mood wasn't any better. The clothes, the carriage, the guards, everything was irritatingly suffocating. Suddenly, Adrian's attention shifted to something else. Opposite him, Adelia flinched in fear at being pointed out. "You." He looked at her neck and asked, "What is that scar from?" Hearing this, she hurriedly took the blame. "It is due to my incompetence, Your Highness. It's because of the matter for which you were right to rebuke me." On the other hand, Adrian was starting to regret again. "Why is it that the more I dig into this body's past, the more I find more horrific stories?" Seeing Adelia trembling like this, he suddenly felt curious. "Come to think of it, I've seen that maid for months, without even knowing her name." Then Adrian took the initiative to ask, "What is your name?" Adelia replied accordingly, "I am Adelia Bayan, Your Highness." His face immediately turned to shock. "Bayan?" Meanwhile, she only whispered, "It is a family that is barely listed among the nobility." But Adrian thought very differently. "I didn't expect to hear that name again. In a place like this, among his countless memories from the distant past, when even the city walls did not yet exist, let alone the kingdoms, among the many races on the continent. That was an era where weak humans were plundered and murdered. As a matter of course, there were those who put an end to the history of that miserable race. At the end of the Great War, to the saviors who helped humans rise to become the dominant race on the continent. People bestowed upon them the title of the 5 great electors. Amidst the glorious moment, a red cloak fluttered, one of those 5 heroes. Edna smiled at him at the same time. Rohan took him in her hand as she casually asked, "Have you ever thought about that?" Before their eyes, countless monsters were swarming. "About what you and I will do after this war ends." However, Edna's gaze did not waver at all. In the blink of an eye, she vanished at great speed. Ednis rushed straight at the leader, facing it head-on, and then she performed a miracle, the one who beheaded Ida, the king of giants, and ended the long era of exploitation. Furthermore, Ednis tore it apart with precise sword strikes. With that memory, he called her name once more. The iron-blooded sword Marquis Ednis Bayan. In return, growls suddenly echoed around Ednis. Soon, the giants had surrounded her. For these kinds, mana, glowing gold mana lit up, making her eyes sharpen. Next, she kept cursing at them, creeping back thinking there would be something to eat. "You bastards only think about one thing." With hatred, she took down another one. "With bodies like yours." Even so, her tone grew even harsher, only choosing to do things that beasts do. "Kids like you should be." At that moment, Gruhan was so panicked he broke into a sweat. Returning to the present, he hurried to cover his ears. "Just thinking about it fouls my ears." Gradually, Adrian looked up. Anyway, a descendant of that Bayan. He stared at Adelia and wondered, what on earth happened for them to end up in such a state? Right then, Cast announced to him, "Your Highness, we have arrived." As a matter of course, he opened the door and stood waiting beside His Highness. Adrian sighed and stepped out, just in time. After walking a few steps, he suddenly paused. Without hesitation, he pointed at Adelia. "Adelia, let's talk later." Just like that, Adrian left the two people in a state of confusion. On the other hand, upon arrival, Bernardo welcomed him, "Your Highness." Furthermore, he bowed respectfully. Have you been well all this time? Bernardo of the Ellie family greets the first prince, Adrian Leonberg. Then Bernardo smiled brightly. I cannot describe my joy in seeing that you are safe and sound. On this side he was doubtful. This guy is a descendant of the Ellie family? He looks like an idiot. But very quickly Adrian was taken aback. You must have suffered quite a lot to have become so thin. With a certain thought, he gave a cold snort in his heart. In return, Bernardo was quite confused. Is something wrong, Your Highness? Do you still feel unwell? Adrian immediately denied it. No, it's nothing. I just think it's good that I came here. Next, he patted the other's shoulder. Thanks to you, today will be very interesting. Finishing his words, Adrian turned away in a very good mood. Before long, unpleasant words reached his ears, and then that girl pulled her skirt up high, as if she had never known what shame was. Right next to her, there was someone playing along. That girl really does have smooth skin. The young lady shyly said, "Oh, stop teasing me. I hate it." Amidst that atmosphere, the two of them sat silently in one spot. Bernardo finally found it quite strange. Normally, this scumbag would be dead drunk and flirting all over the place by now. He carefully assessed him. His aura feels completely different from before. As soon as he finished speaking, a man nearby suddenly stood up. Being drunk, he spoke out casually. I have heard, Your Highness, his tone was somewhat sarcastic, that you have plucked the flower of the Iron Lion. Rumors are spreading everywhere. In response, Adrian only shot a cold glance over. Meanwhile, several others quickly chimed in. I was one step too late. I've had my eye on that woman for quite a while too. If I had known this would happen, I should have taken her vow first. He laughed pervertedly. Just seeing her in armor was beautiful enough. I wonder how wonderful the body underneath that armor is. Right then, he suddenly asked, Hey, do you have any siblings at home? The man was instantly dazed. Huh? Then he answered as a matter of course. Have you forgotten already? I have a younger brother. Hearing that, he let out a laugh of relief. Truly? And while the opponent still didn't understand, a punch suddenly flew straight at him. What the? Adrian directly delivered a stunning blow to him. The unfortunate man immediately fell backward. His cheek swelled up red. The glass on the table broke because of it, soaking the floor. Now the nobles' faces turned pale with fear. Even Bernardo froze in shock. As for Adrian, he happily continued, I'm relieved, because your family line won't be extinguished. Immediately after, he kicked him straight in the groin. Just like that, a pathetic scream echoed through the room. Adrian directly declared, from now on, your younger brother will be the heir. Not stopping there, Adrian continued to swing his fists. This time, he also aimed for the face to pummel him. Witnessing this, the onlookers were completely frozen in shock. As for Bernardo, his shock turned into pure terror. Adrian, on his side, grabbed the man's shirt and pulled him back. Before taking another hit, the man hurriedly cried out, Why are you doing this, Your Highness? Faced with this question, he slowly said, Listen carefully. Adrian glared at him to intimidate him. I can endure you thinking of me as a piece of scum, but I cannot endure you treating me like a piece of scum. The others were bewildered after hearing this. What is he talking about? On the other hand, he began to vent his anger again. It means you need to be beaten a bit more. This blow sent him sliding a long way across the floor. The atmosphere immediately turned heavy because everyone was afraid. As Adrian approached, the noble was already unconscious. Seeing this, he called out, Ellie. He quickly knelt down. Yes, Your Highness. With a delighted expression, he joked with Bernardo. Didn't I say it just now? Today seems like it will be very interesting. This scene made him tremble with fear. Why is this madman suddenly acting like this? At this moment, he suddenly commanded, Go call the royal knights here. Hearing that, he immediately rushed off, Your Highness. I obey your command. While Bernardo left the room, the tension continued to mount. Adrian scanned his eyes around and stopped at one spot. He immediately ordered, You girls over there, get out of here. At the same time, one man was wary of him. Thinking he didn't know, the man began to step back. But Adrian realized immediately, I said the girls. At the same time, he didn't forget to threaten. If you want to leave, go ahead. But if you do, you will be leaving in the capacity of a woman. Recalling the action from earlier, they hurriedly stood still in their places. Seeing that everyone had become obedient, Adrian slowly paced around. His tone was as gentle as a narration. None of you bothered to kneel properly before a prince, nor did you show the slightest bit of respect. He reminded them bit by bit. You mocked me to my face. At this point, he glared, and you insulted my knight. Even so, Adrian deliberately asked, in this case, what crimes can be charged? The knight Bernardo called for answered immediately, because they have held the royal family in contempt. It constitutes the crime of lèse-majesté. The faces of several nobles instantly turned pale, while Cast continued to explain, and furthermore because they challenged the authority of the royal family. This is also akin to the crime of treason. Then he stood solemnly beside Adrian. Please give the order, Your Highness. Which ones shall we make kneel? Faced with this question, the corners of his mouth quickly curled up in amusement. Adrian gave his answer, all of them. After that party, the emperor directly questioned him. You caused quite a scene. As soon as your house arrest ended, he immediately recounted everything. 14 children of the nobility have been arrested. Lèse-majesté, treason. You slapped on every heavy and serious charge you could find. Finally, he asked in a low voice, do you realize what you have done? At this moment the emperor was very angry, because you invoked the authority of the royal family. They must be strictly punished. But with 14 families involved, we cannot simply ignore such fierce opposition. As if understanding the situation perfectly, he casually said, is Imperial Father worried about the opposition? Adrian explained freely. They are the ones cast aside. Even within their own families, they are irredeemable pieces of trash, who only stain their family's reputation if kept around. Next, he proposed a solution: send out letters. Hearing this, the emperor wondered. A letter? To whom? He didn't beat around the bush. Imperial Father, you are asking even though you already know. Aren't there people who can handle the gossip within each family better than anyone else? Adrian smiled as if it were obvious. The siblings of those captured scumbags. After speaking, he deliberately tested the emperor. Did I say something wrong? In the end, he had no choice but to order, leave now. This made him extremely satisfied. I obey. See? Nothing left to say, right? Upon returning, Adrian tried to appear harmless. Come now. You don't need to be so tense. I won't harm you. Adelia, on her part, trembled in fear. Your Highness, what exactly has this lowly maid done wrong? This reaction unconsciously made him feel guilty. That scumbag must have tormented her quite a lot. Adrian recalled the words from before. It's a family that struggled greatly to even be included in the list of nobility. He quickly came to a conclusion. Even the direct descendants know nothing about Bayan. The glorious history has been erased, and the peerless techniques have been lost. Thinking this, Adrian felt somewhat indignant. Such illustrious fame and towering pride. At this moment he was using judgment to check Adelia. It has all disappeared without a trace, and yet, however, the next second he flinched. Wait a minute. Before Adrian's eyes, he clearly saw the power. Berserker Butcher. What is with all these traits? The frenzied image of Agnes immediately flashed by, and at the same time, in total contrast, Adelia only had the fragile heart trait. Adrian was now agape with astonishment. She possesses invincible talent, but doesn't have any traits to control her own madness. Then he looked at her pensively. Will it be alright if I release that madness into the world? With that thought, he proactively gave Adelia some space. Adrian quickly made up his mind. I have to give it a try. A plan had already formed in his mind. After all, that is an S-rank talent, and it just so happens there's a trait I can exploit. The skill he wanted to use is called servility, a trait of feeling extreme happiness from the existence of the master, of whom one serves with total devotion. So Adrian immediately spoke up. Adelia Bayan, swear your loyalty to me. In return, she was very surprised. Pardon? What do you mean by that? However, he still firmly stated, I am telling you to become my knight, right here, right now, not unexpectedly. She hurried to kneel. Your Highness, that is not something this lowly maid can undertake. Next, he began to set the conditions. You said your family is very obscure. I will take responsibility for your family. Adrian's tone suddenly became serious. In return, you must swear loyalty to me, and serve me as your master. Having said that, he observed her expression. If you cannot control the madness yourself, I will hold the reins for you. As for Adelia, she asked in a flustered manner, Will you truly take responsibility for my family? He quickly replied, that's right. Next, Adrian affirmed, if you wish, I will summon them to the capital, so that you can see them at any time. And this time she looked very joyful. I will do as you say. Then Adelia hurriedly bowed her head. Adelia, eldest daughter of the Bayan family, swears loyalty to your highness, the first Prince Adrian Leonberg. On this side, he watched her in silence. I will serve you as my master and dedicate this entire life to you. Waiting for her to finish the vow, he reached out. Good, Adrian directly declared. From now on, you will obey my orders unconditionally. She immediately responded, I obey your command. In that moment, Adelia gradually revealed an unusual excitement. That reaction left him quite bewildered. Was this the right choice? Since taking Adelia as his personal maid, the rumors about Adrian grew louder and louder. I heard the first prince, who had been quite silent lately, has started acting like a thug again, not only using despicable tricks to force a knight to swear loyalty, but he also summoned the children of nobles to beat them and throw them into prison. Now I hear he even appointed a maid, who has never held a sword, as his personal knight. Clearly he wants to build a harem under the guise of personal knights. His face darkened as he couldn't help but wonder, why is everyone suddenly paying so much attention to me? Adrian Leonberg had countless unanswered questions. I only took in one personal night, yet from the moment I woke up, everyone has something to say. Take his beloved old father for example, Emperor Leonberg. I'm having a headache cleaning up the mess you caused, yet here you are, indulging in women? Next, the familiar sting was unavoidable. Scarface Bill, how pathetic. Have you given up on that bet already? Even young Jillian Leonberg used this to look down on him with disdain. Appointing a maid as a knight, that's exactly your style, brother. With these words swirling in his head, he looked visibly helpless. How do rumors spread so fast? Right then, a maid entered to announce, Your Highness, the Queen has arrived. Adrian Leonberg jumped up in a fit of rage. Give me a break. 1 month later, the Queen of Leonberg appeared with a voice full of disappointment. I thought you had turned over a new leaf. It seems you intend to return to your old lifestyle. She lowered her voice as if having something difficult to say. Actually, that might be for the best. The next words left the Queen of Leonberg looking stunned. Once you choose a wife and settle down, surely you will stop this wandering behavior. Suddenly, Queen Leonberg frowned deeply, firmly declaring, trust me this time. I will definitely find a worthy wife for you. The moment she finished speaking, she gave Adrian no chance to respond, and turned around to leave immediately. I don't even know what to say anymore. 1 month later, he summoned Adelia Bayan to his room. So now, will I also have mana? Adrian Leonberg smiled and nodded. That's right, a very special kind of mana. Acting on his words immediately, in the palm of his hand appeared sea blue magic. As soon as the energy flow within Adelia was stimulated, it instantly turned gold. Though the world has completely forgotten the sword marquis, I have not forgotten a single thing. The footsteps she left behind, the sword dancing on her fingertips. The soul of the sword marquis cradled Adelia in its arms, and the thing a true swordsman cannot lack, that is, the magnificent beating of her own heart. When the mana was fully integrated, the system displayed a notification. Adelia Bayan has sensed mana. Adrian waited anxiously to see the next result. You have successfully imprinted mana onto Adelia Bayan. Mana has successfully taken shape in the body. At that moment, her eyes opened wide, filled with light. A mana heart has been created. Adelia's cheeks flushed red with astonishment. She asked in a small voice, is this mana? Adrian slowly and calmly explained clearly. What you just did was the method of forging a mana heart. From now on, practice on your own whenever you have time. After these words, he was exhausted and fell directly to the ground. Your Highness! Seeing this, Adelia cried out in panic. Are you all right? Adrian knelt down but remained relatively conscious. I didn't expect to end up in such a state, just from creating one mana heart. He struggled to sit up and shook his head to reassure her. I'm just a little tired. Her eyes were fixed on Adrian's back as she asked, why did you go to such lengths? For a lowly person like me? Without letting Adelia ask any further, he casually dismissed her. It's fine. Leave now. He waited, but Adelia still wouldn't leave. Why are you looking at me like that? To his surprise, she bowed deeply and spoke with absolute conviction. I will remain loyal to you for the rest of my life. Hearing those words, he was extremely satisfied. As long as you don't forget I am your master, that's enough. Her eyes sparkled. With hands clasped tightly together, she replied, yes, yes. After that, Adrian turned to leave. In his heart, a chilling thought suddenly crossed his mind. I'm afraid you might actually forget. His face darkened as he emphasized to himself. Seriously, time gradually passed, until it was several days later. Cast came to see Adrian with a great deal of caution. Your Highness, regarding Ernest Huntington, I heard he is being held by the Royal Guard, in detention, as a witness to the recent disturbance. It seems no one is allowed to see him until the trial begins. This made him quite curious, asking back, a trial? Adrian Leonberg's face showed clear boredom. Don't tell me I have to attend this trial too. He immediately replied, the royal family does not need to go to court. A wide smile instantly broke out on Adrian's face. That's good news. He was already acting weary. But a trial, they're really making a mountain out of a molehill. Seeing Adelia on the other side, Adrian suddenly had something to ask. Adelia, how is your situation? Pardon? She startled and paused for a second. What do you mean? He rested his chin on his hand and questioned, your mana heart. Has it stabilized yet? Adelia Bayan understood the meaning after hearing that. Yes, your highness, as if receiving a signal. Adrian sat up and said, good, from today, you will join me in training. Go change. Then meet me at the training ground. Seeing that she seemed to hesitate, he reminded her in a gravelly voice, and throw that rag away. You're a knight now. A moment later, Adrian was warming up at the training ground. Just then, a familiar voice rang out. What do you think you're doing? Bill Van H's face right in front of him made him annoyed. Can't you see? I'm warming up. He interrupted in a low voice. Not you. Bill's gaze turned toward Adelia, who was running for her life. I mean that girl over there. Understanding the point, Adrian appeared much more composed. Didn't you hear the rumors? I'm training her to be a knight. These words made Bill even more furious. Knight, is a knight such a trivial thing to you? Considering the current situation, how can you be so reckless? As much as he heated up, Adrian's blood boiled just as much. Since when did you become such a busybody? If you hate it that much, why do you keep coming here? Right then, Adelia ran up from a distance. Your Highness! She collapsed to the ground, panting. 10 laps. Completed. Bill turned away immediately when he saw Adelia looking over. She looked slightly worried. Your Highness, I'm sorry, it's because of me. Adrian directly brushed it aside and said, forget it, take this. Today I will only teach you the basic stances. In no time, he demonstrated a series of sword moves in front of Adelia. Bayan, first take a stance and swing the sword like this. Finishing the move, Adrian gave the order, try it. She awkwardly held the wooden sword in her hands. Like this? Suddenly, Adelia's eyes widened. A hint of sharpness flickered within them. The strike she executed was quite ingenious. Her footwork was also graceful. This left a strong impression on Bill Van H. Even Adrian was stunned. She could copy to that extent. After seeing it only once, having finished, Adelia turned around and timidly asked, is my stance correct? In his heart, there was a sense of unease. Wait a minute, if I let my guard down, she will surpass me in the blink of an eye. The slave mentality trait means submitting to the strong, not respecting the weak. I already felt uneasy because of how that bastard prince tormented her in the past. Thinking of this, a terrible vision appeared before Adrian's eyes. If she surpasses me now, he glanced gloomily over at Bill, who was showing clear signs of joy. To think she possesses such talent. He couldn't help but nudge Bill. What do you think you're doing? Adrian acted like a jealous jar of vinegar. Don't you dare covet her. Hearing that, the corner of his mouth twitched. What could you possibly give that child? You're just an amateur who has only held a sword for a few months. He surged his mana and emphasized, you won't be able to control her. The words felt like a thorn pricking Adrian. He bit his lip and thought to himself, if it were that bastard, he would have trembled and backed away immediately. But I am not him. Adrian Leonberg's eyes glowed as he replied, if I cannot control her. The mana heart in his chest flared up. His words were firm and resolute. Then no one can, for one simple reason, because I have drunk the blood of the giant king, of the berserk dragon and countless other beings. The essence of Adrian is Rohan, His eyes transformed as the system confirmed the information. A portion of the soul manifests, according to the user's will. The mana surrounding him changed. Even Bill could feel the pressure radiating outward. Adrian stood facing him, emphasizing every word. She is truly mine. Standing before Bill, Adrian emphasized once more. She is mine. Don't look at her and don't covet her. I truly hate it when someone takes what belongs to me. His face darkened and he didn't reply. Unexpectedly, his eyes glowed a furious red. Adrian Leonberg let out a long sigh. Deep down, he began to feel strange. The sense of my reality is fading. I can't feel vitality or life, only filled with a sense of coldness and darkness. Is this an omen? Adrian was filled with dread. At this rate, this weak body will be swallowed by Gruhan's soul. Just as his will began to fade, something made him snap awake. He faced Gruhan directly. That's enough once and for all. Adrian will tame his own primal instincts. Bill's footsteps stomped firmly on the ground. He taught in a low voice, an ordinary knight can save the lives of 10 soldiers. An outstanding knight can save the lives of 100 soldiers. Bill Van H. turned his gaze toward Adelia, not yet understanding the situation. That child could potentially save 1,000, or even more soldiers. Adrian rubbed his chin upon hearing that. Is it faith for the great cause of the northern border commander? However, Adrian put on a nonchalant look and judged. I don't care. Bill's expectations vanished into thin air. Even if she could save countless people. Regardless, suddenly, Adelia Bayan spoke up softly. Count Banner H. continued. She firmly patted her chest and declared, my body and my heart already belong to His Highness. I cannot do as you say, Count. These words momentarily left Bill unable to react. Adrian stood to the side, thinking triumphantly. It was worth the effort of pulling my soul out. Slave mentality, forced to submit to a higher-ranking existence. He took advantage of the situation to act superior. That's what she said. And uncle, don't you have nothing left to teach me now? The goal from the start was just to help me lose weight. If you want to continue coming to my palace, then from now on, stop interfering in my business. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and concede. Understood. Even after that day, his uncle continued to come to the palace every single day, to monitor Adelia, although he couldn't do anything because of the ban on nagging and interfering. But because of that, Adrian gained a small bit of amusement. Watching his arrogant uncle, seeing him so restless is actually quite entertaining. Suddenly, Adelia's wooden sword emitted a slight breath of mana. Even she herself could not believe it. Bill frowned because of the sensation that had just hit him. He realized the change with shock. Has she already learned sword resonance? Adrian clapped his hands loudly to get Adelia's attention. Well done, very well done. In his heart, he couldn't help but feel anxious. At this speed, I might actually be overtaken. Adelia walked over happily. Unexpectedly, Bill had been trembling for some time. He stood in front of Adrian and questioned him. You already taught the girl the mana heart? His response made Bill Van H. even more furious. That's right, is there a problem? To this extent, he couldn't take it anymore and shouted loudly. Was it not enough for you alone to learn those cheap, trivial tricks? Adrian's face darkened. A warning light flashed in his eyes, showing no mercy at all. He directly told Bill, get out. However, Bill still tried to say a few more words. There was a much better path. There was potential that you couldn't even imagine, and you have ruined it all. Adrian walked straight ahead without looking back. See the guest out, see the guest out. Hearing this, Cast was a bit awkward. Before His Highness could say more to Adrian, Bill left of his own accord. No need, I will walk out on my own 2 feet. Adelia stood in the middle, watching the 2 men argue over her. She called out softly, Your Highness, is what I learned a cheap, trivial trick? He cut her off, his voice heavy with displeasure. No, absolutely not. Adelia, innocent and wide-eyed, continued to ask. Then why did the Count say that? Adrian simply replied nonchalantly, because he doesn't know. The people of this era have completely forgotten what a true mana heart is like. If they hadn't forgotten, they wouldn't throw it away like an old pair of shoes. He spoke while ignoring Bill, who was gradually fading from view. You will know soon enough the true power of the mana heart. A few days later, at the training ground, a wooden sword was slammed hard into the ground. Adrian crossed his arms and glanced at it without saying a word. Then he looked up and teased Bill in a playful voice. Then you acted like you were never coming back. He simply threw out 3 words. Prove it. I will only use 1 ring of mana. If you can push me back even half a step, I will acknowledge you. Adrian Leonberg did not hesitate to grasp the hilt of his wooden sword. What was that bet back then again? He made a grand gesture. Grant a wish. Bill stared coldly with affectionate eyes. If you win, I will grant you 1 thing. No matter what it is. Even if you ask me to teach you the family's secret techniques, I will do it. Adrian smirked, wearing a provocative expression. That's not what I want. He went along with it casually. Fine then. In an instant, Adrian rushed forward. His first target was the man's neck. Let's go. Facing this strike, Bill gave a faint exclamation of admiration. Aiming for the neck from the start, your strikes are as vicious as ever. With another strike, Bill leaned back to dodge. He was extremely annoyed, grit his teeth and kept his mouth shut. Immediately after, Bill dodged a dozen more strikes easily. He got so bored he decided to create a variable. With just a one-handed slash, Adrian had to use 60 to 70% of his strength just to block. Bill took the opportunity to provoke him. Is that all? With his pride wounded by the insult, Adrian's ego flared up. But the first thing he had to do was to create some distance from him first. Seeing that, Bill unintentionally lowered his guard. Have you given up already? Adrian stood up and gripped the sword hilt tightly once more. Not a chance. He truly knew his own standing. He really is annoying, but I have to give credit where credit is due. Uncle is very strong. A man like that is waiting for me to draw my mana, just to let me taste a miserable defeat once again. With a mana heart at this level, I will definitely lose just as he expects. Thinking that, he decided to switch to a war of words. Isn't it very strange? Bill's face wrinkled, showing a look of confusion. Immediately following was Adrian Leonberg's explanation. 400 years ago, countless knights using mana hearts achieved unimaginable feats, and yet, just because a slightly more useful technique appeared, all the skills of those great knights are now regarded as trash. It seems that's what everyone thinks, that the technique called mana chain is a method of controlling mana that is much stronger than a mana heart. As soon as he finished, Bill questioned him bluntly. What on earth are you trying to say? Adrian spoke softly, half expressing and half declaring. My thoughts are different. It's not that the mana heart is weak, but that its master is weak. Not every mana heart is the same. Having said this, Adrian Leonberg's eyes revealed his inherent confidence. Uncle, have you ever heard of the War Soul song? However, to Bill Van H., it was just ear-piercing chatter. This is a place for sword fighting. Not a place to discuss things that sound pleasing to the ear. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. I thought you would say that, Uncle, because you also call the mana heart
a primitive technique
that only lowly mercenaries learn. He didn't even bother to hide his impatience. You talk too much. Do you need more time to catch your breath? Adrian paused for a beat and then brushed it off. No need. With his footsteps, Adrian gradually became much more graceful. The path a knight has walked shall become a feat. 100 victories are my pride, and they are my strength. The energy Adrian emitted was incredibly strange. Even Bill had to be wary. What? The system confirmed the transformation. I sing the song of 100 victories, before 20 trainees dreaming of becoming knights. Feats are engraved into the heart, and the engraved feats shall become the War Soul song. The War Soul song has been created, reigning within the knight's holy sword at that moment. Something unprecedented took place. War Soul song, normal grade, battle song has been created. A small feat, a trivial one that I have achieved over the past 6 months. The effect of the battle song has been activated. This is the true power of the mana heart. War Soul song. The system displays a notification. The effect of the battle song has been activated. Standing before Adrian, Bill remains firm in his thoughts. No matter what you do, it will be the same. He frowns, dismissing all of his notions. As long as you possess a mana heart, you cannot defeat a mana chain. To his surprise, Adrian Leonberg doesn't listen at all, directly wielding his sword and rushing forward. As he closes in, Bill is momentarily taken aback. Suddenly, Adrian's heart throbs repeatedly. Indeed, the mana of the rings has the property of causing mana reflux. Through the mana heart, he grits his teeth and darkens his face to endure, nearly failing. Bill smirks, secretly pleased. He continues to use words to shatter Adrian's resolve. You're quite good at being stubborn and enduring. And despite the disadvantage, he still smiles. However, to obtain this song, I have trained over 100 times and endured the mana of the rings over 1,000 times. A power forged to deal with knights who use mana chains while clashing 100 times. I have endured 1,000 waves. Mana escapes from Adrian, enveloping his entire body. His heart is coiled in fiery magic. This is the power of the battle song. The tip of the wooden sword is now much sharper. Bill, facing him, thinks to himself, now it seems worth a try. Adrian's speed vanishes in the blink of an eye. The two swords clash, radiating immense pressure. Bill remains in place. Only he is moving with full devotion. The longer the fight lasts, the more Adrian's strength stays beyond the allowed limits. Only now does he begin to feel somewhat exhausted. I didn't expect him to hold out for this long. Suddenly, something touched the hilt of the sword. Bill decided to act, delivering a direct downward slash. Adrian was pushed back several meters. His face was smudged with dirt from the fight. He asked in a stern voice, "What do you think?" Before he could finish, he was cut off. "I told you not every mana heart is the same." Bill's magic circle lit up. "You are truly arrogant." He unconsciously moved his foot from its original position, then put his strength into a basic move. Adrian's body couldn't withstand the force and was sent flying. Quite a long time has passed. Even Bill Van Hart's endurance has a limit. I won't play around anymore. Just being able to endure until now is already very commendable. I will praise you. He didn't care, only struggling to crawl up while thinking. As expected, a normal grade war soul song is not enough. However, not stopping there, Adrian continued his story. 400 years ago, the knights made a grave mistake. They left no enemies for future generations. Initially, everything must have been passed down intact. The sword techniques, the correct methods of training the heart, and the brilliant war soul songs. But time gnawed away at those brilliant feats, and ultimately caused them to be forgotten. The stories of dragons never seen, and giant kings never heard of, they must have become wild myths. Of course, new war soul songs were created. However, the best was only a victory over 10 knights. The best was only the feat of defeating 100 soldiers. The best was only a song, built while facing humans, with levels that could never become myths, or heroes, could not withstand the new wind. In the depths of Adrian's eyes, unshaken by the mana chain, with such cheap techniques, you people can never reach transcendence. After hearing this, Bill Van Hart questioned him. Are you drinking in the middle of the day? I haven't understood a single thing you've been saying. In his eyes, he was just an old-fashioned man. Bill Van Hart was an arrogant and foolish knight at this moment. Adrian continued his speech. You all need to know exactly how great a thing you have lost. Amidst the frenzy of mana, he monologued to himself. If you do not know, it seemed as if the mana turned into arms to envelop the hands of Adrian Leonberg. I will teach you something that no treasure sword can cut, slicing dragon scales and drinking its hot blood. This time, the system displayed a new notification. I sing aloud the song of the true dragon's world destruction. Suddenly, Adrian's heart throbbed with stinging pain. Current ability cannot withstand the level of the song. A portion of the song has been omitted. 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 Finally, after the omissions, the system confirmed one last time, singing only a single line of the song. A quarter of a quarter. His eyes glowed red, flaring up with the sword technique within him. Dragon scale slash, sword clashed with sword, sparks flying everywhere. The mana blade of Bill showed signs of being sliced through. This is, his pupils dilated to the limit. At this rate, I will be swallowed up. Finally, the energy reached its peak. A brilliant light flashed in the clear sky, an explosion, triggered because of it, destroying the arena floor. Adrian was sent flying along with a panicked cry, "Your Highness." As the smoke gradually cleared, Bill's figure still stood tall. He painfully struggled to crawl back up. What met his eyes were Bill's 4 magic rings. He couldn't help but question him. "Didn't you say you would only use 1 ring?"
Bill Van Hart's face darkened.
Seeing that, he thought to himself, "So even after using all 4 of your rings, you still couldn't prevent your sword from being cut down." On the other side, Adrian sat up straight. "Mana from the heart is weaker than mana from the rings. That is an undeniable truth." Right then, he spoke up and coldly declared, "Count Bill Van Hart." Just 3 words made Bill's entire body stiffen. "You lost." In the middle of the climax, suddenly, dozens of things were disturbing Adrian's heart. It tightly gripped the soul of Gruhan. His soul wouldn't stop. "Please stop right now." Adrian Leonberg's face turned visibly pale. Unconsciously, he clutched his chest and collapsed, returning to the present. The pain continued to haunt Adrian in his bed. His hands trembled as he gripped the bedsheets. Sweat poured down Adrian's face. "This damn War Soul song. This is the price to pay for forcing out the power of the War Soul song. To cut through the dragon scales, because the song of true dragon's world. Destruction is a mythic level War Soul song." After calming down, Adrian clenched his fist with pride. "My body has become wrecked because of it, but it was well worth the price. The first War Soul song that I wove with my own hands. 100 victories in 100 battles are my pride, and also my strength. Having gone through hundreds of duels, I have endured thousands of violent waves. I will stand firm against waves, even greater than those." He smiled slightly with satisfaction. The level of the battle song has increased slightly. Thinking of something made Adrian quite excited. "This is enough to face that bastard third prince." Suddenly, Adelia's voice rang out, "Your Highness." She looked at him like a fan seeing an idol. "You've finally woken up. Everything was in chaos after your Highness fainted like that. I have never, now that I've seen the Queen get that angry before." After hearing that, Adrian smirked and chuckled. "They deserved it, they really deserved it." Adelia Bayan cautiously interrupted his joy, and Count Bannerheart also left a message saying, "To inform him as soon as your Highness wakes up." Adrian lazily sprawled out on the bed. "Don't report it yet, I'm gonna rest a bit longer." Then he gave her the silent treatment, because Adrian was busy focusing on the soul within his body. "If I don't recover my spirit properly, after being damaged by abusing the War Soul song, I will have to pay a terrible price. Reality and past memories will blend together, creating a chaotic mess, and at some point, the boundary of reality will completely collapse, eventually turning into a madman. I will constantly reenact the moments of the War Soul inside a fragmented world." Thinking of this outcome, his face twisted. Thinking of being trapped in the sword's memories again, after finally managing to become human. Just imagining it makes me shudder. According to the memories of Adrian's disgrace, Agnes Bayan, she was a great swordswoman. After explaining to Adelia, he then emphasized, "Because you are a descendant of that Bayan family, you should be able to inherit the War Soul song that she left behind." She was a bit surprised to hear that. "I never expected that my ancestor was such a great swordswoman." He looked surprised and shrugged while pouring water. "Of course, you need to grow much more than you are now to be able to possess a level worthy of that song. So, about that," Adrian asked half inquiringly, half suggestively, "What do you want to do once you learn swordsmanship?" Adelia seemed to have never thought about this. "About that," she avoided his gaze. "If I truly can become a knight." Adrian felt helpless at her awkwardness. "If I become a knight." He didn't want to pressure Adelia Bayan any further. "If you can't think of it, tell me later." Suddenly, she still tried to speak her mind clearly. He paused, waiting for Adelia's next words. She seemed to summon all her courage to express herself. "Your Highness's servant. I will become your Highness's sword." Now it was Adrian's turn to be surprised. Memories of the days when he was a sword rushed back. There are songs of great feats that begin with the sounding of the battle horn, and there are also songs of great feats that begin with the first step across a field. There are also stories that begin with a solemn oath. Engraved in one's heart, the oath Adelia spoke aloud. "To live for your Highness for the rest of my life. I will dedicate everything to your Highness." Suddenly, the system issued a hidden notification. Adelia Bayan offers the Song of Submission. His mana heart suddenly lit up. "Is this Adelia's War Soul song?" and sometimes, a war soul song also affects others. A golden light shone directly down upon Adelia. A new war soul song has been created. A normal grade war soul song. The song of dominance has been created. According to what he knew, the song of submission is a song offered to a master. Rather than a war soul song, it is more like an oath of obedience, binding souls closer together, even if she has the servant mentality trait. Looking at Adelia before him, Adrian thought to himself, I didn't expect the descendant of the Sword Mother to weave a war soul song of submission. I have already felt this unexpected help. Looking at his current abilities, Adrian smiled with satisfaction. As long as I am the target of the song of submission, Adelia's growth will also bring benefits to me. Adrian smiled and glanced at her. Thank you. This immediately caused Adelia to blush incessantly. Your Highness, in the dark room, two pairs of eyes briefly met, although I still don't know in which direction those benefits will go. Time passed, and now it was several days later. Adrian's face looked visibly stunned, while Cast and Adelia stood in front of him, speechless and confused. Just then, a call echoed from outside. Ian, do you feel any better? He stammered in response. I'm fine. Looking on, Adrian warily watched Queen Leonberg at the door. Dealing with those who hate this body is much easier, but regarding those who love, the original owner of this body, that is quite awkward. Suddenly, she spoke up and asked, do you resent your uncle? Without letting him answer, Queen Leonberg explained in a low voice, your uncle didn't truly mean to harm you, so even if there are some bad feelings left, please let them go. He spoke up indifferently. I don't have any negative feelings at all. To his surprise, Queen Leonberg became even more agitated. How could you not? He treated you roughly and nagged you at every turn. To say you have no negative feelings must be a lie. Adrian explained helplessly. No, I really don't. He tiredly scratched his face, waiting for her reaction. Recalling that day, he said to himself, I already dealt him a blow that day, because all of his pride and truth were denied. He must be struggling to endure the things I planted in his heart that day. Inner demons, if he has the strength, he will go even further. But if he cannot overcome them, he will lose even that precious martial prowess. To be honest, I don't care what happens after that. Queen Leonberg smiled. She recounted as if reminiscing. Your uncle has spent his whole life bonding with swords, rather than with people, so he is somewhat clumsy and rough, however. Lately, it seems he is very proud of you. He even personally persuaded His Majesty. And the next words moved Adrian's callous thoughts. Thanks to him, your house arrest was lifted earlier than expected. But trouble struck as soon as the house arrest was lifted. That was when Adrian protested wildly, declaring, arrest them all. She let out a soft, long sigh. Your uncle's position must be quite awkward too. Remembering that, his face went blank for a moment. Is that why he acted so dissatisfied? Adrian rubbed his chin, thinking for a bit longer. But a massive question appeared in his mind. Why would that man do that for me? After the day Queen Leonberg dropped by, yet another old man appeared, the scholar Niccolo Machiavelli. He smiled like a pyramid schemer, Your Highness. Adrian felt a chill and bluntly cut him off. I absolutely refuse. Cast and Adelia stood silently to the side, observing. Unexpectedly, he pulled his old trick again, rolling around on the floor crying and screaming. Seriously, why do I have to study? Niccolo remained unfazed and said, if one doesn't learn, then what is the difference between a human and a beast? Hearing this, he bolted up in anger. Are you calling me a beast? He patiently and slowly advised, you have only just started your studies, Your Highness, so I cannot call you a beast just yet. Adrian roared back in protest. I haven't even started, don't play word games with me. After saying that, he sat huffily on the ground. I may look like this, but I already know everything I need to know. I'm telling you, I don't need to learn anything more. Got it, Niccolo? Machiavelli continued with his persuasive tactics. If you are that determined, then let's do this. You will discuss a few topics with me. If your skills are truly as you say, then I will stop coming to see you. Your Highness, the opportunity arrived in a flash. He agreed immediately. That sounds fair. The discussion took place, followed by Adrian slamming the table. Yes, exactly. That is why one must always be wary of what's behind them. It's human nature to climb over your head if you show too much leniency. Nicolo followed his lead. You are absolutely correct. Seizing the opportunity, the old man held out a book and said, "You will find it quite enjoyable. This book is very interesting." He took it and quickly flipped through a few pages. It evaluates the relationship between a monarch and their subjects as a type of contract or a transaction. The monarch receives military and economic support in exchange for protecting the subjects, while the subjects seek the monarch's protection and political stability in exchange for their loyalty. This seemed to resonate with Adrian's wavelength. The old man has a point. All relationships are inherently reciprocal, and so the conversation lasted until late afternoon. So regarding this part, exactly, that's right, and this part too. When finished, Nicolo gathered his books. Well then, Your Highness, he smiled brightly and promised, we will continue the rest of the discussion tomorrow. Not yet realizing he had been led by the nose, he even waved goodbye. Sure, I'll be waiting. Even as Nicolo left, Adrian was still quite cheerful. Suddenly, his senses returned in an instant. Wait a minute, did I just participate in a normal study session? The corner of Adrian's mouth twitched at being led like an ox. That old man is truly cunning. Conversely, the old man also had some thoughts about the first prince. He is quite different from the rumors. The next day, when the sun was at its peak, Adrian lay flat on the bed with a look of total defeat. He rolled back and forth, complaining, I'm so bored, I feel restless for no reason. Have I been living too diligently lately? Since I'm not focusing on training, there's nothing to do. My body is also in the process of recovering. Suddenly, a report came from outside the door. Your Highness, Lord Bill Van Hart is here to see you. He jumped up in excitement. It's been a long time since I've had a visitor. Adelia tilted her head and asked, what should we do? Adrian, being so bored, decided to get enthusiastic for once. All right, invite him in. He stood with hands on hips, waiting for his uncle. It has been several days since that duel, so it was about time for him to pay a visit. His attitude shifted when he faced Bill, but it seems he hasn't overcome the inner demons that I planted at all. He let out a sigh, then spoke from the heart. I am truly sorry. I broke my own promise and caused you to be seriously injured. For that, I have absolutely no excuse. Adrian recalled the recent battle with a guilty conscience. The reason I have to recover is not because of Uncle's sword chi, but because I overused the war soul song of the true dragon's destruction. The guilt deepened remembering Queen Leonberg's words. Uncle's situation must be very difficult too, considering I caused another mess. Bill spoke in a low voice, so tell me what you want. If you demand my arm, I will give it. If you demand my eye, I will give that too. He felt a chill and spoke a sentence as cold as ice. What would I do with that kind of trash? At this moment, Adrian was in a difficult dilemma. A man who should have been a sword saint in the past. Yet he's bound by inner demons like this? After thinking for 5 seconds, he finally reached a decision. I'll be generous. I'll state my wish first. Uncle, let me go out for a trip. He was slightly startled because the house arrest had already ended. Can't you go out whenever you want? He wagged his finger, implying that was wrong. Not just a day trip, somewhere far away, if possible out of the capital entirely. This request from Adrian made him freeze like a statue. Took a moment before he could speak. It will take some time to arrange the schedule. With the upcoming banquet, going too far is impossible. Adrian waved it off dismissively. That's fine. As soon as he finished, Bill turned around. Very well. Then I shall contact you as soon as the schedule is set. He dismissively agreed. Just do that. Cass stood beside him, watching Bill leave. Seeing that he had something on his mind, Adrian asked him directly, what is it? Why are you looking at me like that? Cass hummed. Not answering immediately, he scratched his face with a wry smile. It's just a bit unexpected, sir. I thought, Your Highness would demand something much more unreasonable, since the Count broke his promise. And this is a rare opportunity to profit. In many ways, caught in his thoughts, he didn't find it easy to explain. So he could only manage one sentence after that. Seeing that stubborn old man act like that just makes me feel pity for him. Before the goosebumps could even fade, he was met with Cast's delighted laughter. What? Why are you laughing, Cast? You seem to be getting quite comfortable lately, don't you? Just then Adelia appeared. "Your Highness." In her hand was a small piece of paper. "The letter you've been waiting for has arrived. Your Highness, there is a seal from a certain place on it." The letter was quite brief but complete. "I have recently achieved a small success. Perhaps I will be able to visit you soon. I hope you remain in good health until that day." From Arwen Kiriel. Reading the final lines, Adrian smiled slightly. The news arrived at the perfect time. About 5 days later, his uncle sent the good news. And 2 days after that, the day of departure arrived. The carriage procession left the city gates. Adrian, like a 5-year-old, leaned out of the window. "Uncle, what is the name of the territory we are visiting?" "Ellen."
Ellen.
Bill Van Hart's brows furrowed as he reminded him. "Can't you sit still?" But seeing him so excited, he took back his words. "I will explain, so please get back inside." A story began from ancient times. The county of Ellen. It is the largest weapons factory of the royal family. There are iron mines in the territory providing iron ore of high quality, and a guild of talented blacksmiths to refine it. It is not an exaggeration to say that more than half of the weapons supplied to the royal family all come from Ellen. Adrian Leonberg's eyes lit up perfectly. He excitedly calculated new scenarios in his head. "My strength has improved a lot, so it is also time to find a sword of my own." Initially, I intended to just take any random sword that was decent enough from the royal armory to use, but back then, Cast had said, "Forgive me, Your Highness, but because it is a royal decree, we cannot issue any weapons to you, Your Highness, because of the words spoken with great power by Emperor Leonberg. Let it be known that you will be severely punished if you let that brat touch a sword again." Adrian suddenly remembered, because the original owner of this body was mischievous. He was pierced by Gruhan. The more he thought, the more helpless he felt. Considering this guy's notorious track record, it's only natural. But anyway, that means if I want a decent weapon, I have to get it outside the Imperial Palace. Suddenly Adrian paused, peeking toward Bill. A thought flashed through his mind. He is surprisingly thoughtful, compared to his appearance. Bill spoke up to remind him, "You're too noisy. Close the window." He cried out in dissatisfaction. "What? No way." And so, the 20-day journey had just begun. Forced to sit still in the carriage, Adrian decided to stabilize the mana in his body. "But it is also time for me to refill it." The shaking of the carriage, the chilly breeze passing by, the voices of the knights echoing from outside, gathering the tiny mana points, hidden in the atmosphere. "If I fill up this empty mana heart." Slowly, the mana pulses gathered into his heart. Suddenly, Adrian Leonberg sensed a small conflict. "Huh?" He was surprised even while in his subconscious. "Since when did my mana heart become this large?" The system displays a new notification. "You have attempted to perform an extraordinary feat beyond your current capabilities, and have glimpsed a portion of that immense will." After reading this line, he thought to himself, that is exactly the result of forcing the use of the Song of True Dragon's world destruction. Suddenly, a light emanated from Adrian's chest. "That effort has been reflected upon your body. Mana heart. Your heart has expanded. Thanks to the expanded mana heart, your physical constitution has changed significantly. Your body can now endure much more mana. Furthermore, you have reached the realm of a sword master. The connection to the source has improved slightly. Some restrictions on your restored powers have been lifted. The power of clairvoyance has been significantly improved. The power of all hearing ears has been significantly improved." From Adelia's perspective, she only saw him behaving strangely. "Your Highness?" Unexpectedly, he didn't care. He even started waving his arms and legs to test his martial arts. Adrian clenched his fist in excitement. "I have taken another step forward." The carriage procession arrived at the first location, Ellen District. As soon as he stepped down, someone was there to greet him. "I cannot express the honor of meeting you in this manner, Your Highness." The two men before him bowed respectfully. "EGA of the Ellen family sends his greetings. Torrens, the southern chairman of the Ellen family. Greetings to the first prince, Your Highness." He led the group and politely replied, "Thank you for the hospitality." EGA gave a polite laugh and said, "Since it was a long journey, you must be tired. I will lead you to the guest room first." Adrian didn't answer immediately. He looked around with concern. A few observations occurred to Adrian Leonberg. They said this is a place for weapon production, and as expected, the entire mansion is filled with all kinds of weaponry. However, they are just low-level items, only good for show, with no use in actual combat. While walking in with EGA, he continued to glance around. Adrian's expression grew somewhat annoyed. Looking at this, it seems hard to find what I need here. Unable to hold back any longer, he then asked directly, "You said the Blacksmith's Guild is located in this territory, right?" Hearing that, he readily replied, "Yes, that is correct." Taking advantage of the situation, Adrian directly proposed, "I want to go there and take a look." A moment later, someone's footsteps became more hurried. Before long, EGA had taken him to a certain place. Blacksmiths are inherently rude and conservative people. When their work reaches a climax, they often ignore even the Lord when he visits, and the words they speak are as cold and coarse as the iron blocks that they are handling. Therefore, even if you feel offended, please consider it the spirit of a craftsman, and generously forgive them. It seemed like Adrian Leonberg didn't hear a single word. What met his eyes now was only fire and the ringing of hammers. Stepping inside, EGA introduced the place like a proper host. "The heat from the furnace is immense. If you feel uncomfortable, please speak up, Your Highness." Adrian still hadn't escaped the overwhelming feeling from before. The sound of hammers striking iron echoed through the air. Seeing him about to do something, he was a bit confused. "Your Highness?" He moved step by step into the forge. Adrian seemed to blend into it. The flames cheered, the bellows puffed, and the blacksmiths were swinging hammers at the iron blocks. The heat unintentionally made his sweat pour out. However, among all that, the things he cared about gradually appeared before his eyes. There was a sound that was strangely clear. Adrian stopped in front of a hard-working blacksmith, an older man, but his passion and the strength of his strikes never faltered. The sight before him was captured in his gaze. The silhouette of Rohan appeared in his mind. "This is it, the very first memory I remember clearly." Suddenly, a handkerchief was used by someone to wipe the sweat for him. Adrian looked over and met Adelia Bayan. "Your Highness, you are sweating far too much." Only then did he snap out of it. Then he turned away, brushing off her concern. He continued to watch the veteran blacksmith forging the sword. The head blacksmith gathered the workers to come and pay their respects to Adrian. "These lowly ones wish to offer greetings to the first prince, Your Highness." EGA continued, "This person is named Jackson. He is the one who runs this blacksmith guild." He didn't even bother to care. "I understand." However, Adrian only focused on the veteran striking the sword, thinking that he was displeased. Jackson shouted angrily, What do you think you're doing? Stop at once and bow to His Highness." Unexpectedly, this made Adrian angry. "You're being too noisy." His eyes clearly showed his irritation. The group of blacksmiths fell silent, not daring to say a word. The red-hot iron was already smelling of smoke. He glanced around at everyone. It was clear they were forced here while working. Thinking this, Adrian spoke up to remind them, "Doing things that I never even ordered. The iron will grow cold, unless you also want to let the furnace fire die out. Then just keep standing there." As soon as he finished, the blacksmiths scattered back to work. "What are you all doing? Quickly, grab your tools and work the bellows. Hurry!" They left, leaving Adrian standing still, observing. The space around him seemed to freeze. The man in front of him still didn't stop for a second. The rhythm of his hammer was steady, without missing a beat. Adrian had no intention of interfering, only observing every single movement. In the depths of his eyes, the light from the sword was imprinted. It felt as if he were surrounded by nothing but fire. The blade naturally glowed brilliantly. His vision narrowed down to only that man. The sweat flowed faster, his breathing quickened. Adrian wondered, just what exactly is this feeling? The workshop tour had come to an end. EGA saw Adrian out to the exterior. For whatever reason, he has continuously repeated the forging process, then melted them down again for the past 6 months. Hearing that, he was a bit curious. Are they defective products? He shook his head sadly. It's hard to say. The story was slowly recounted by EGA. The swords he makes are all considered masterpieces. That is why he is called a master swordsmith. Even the swords he has made until now seem extremely perfect to me. Truly is a mystery as to why he melts them all down. The more he spoke, the more the confusion and regret became apparent. Over the past month, he has barely slept and only buried himself in his work. Since he is no longer young, we cannot help but worry. Adrian said no more, just took a step straight toward the mansion. A true craftsman. Many days have passed since then. His Highness arrives at the forge early every morning and only leaves late at night. During that time, the old man simply continued his daily work, and His Highness only watched him quietly. Contrary to the tension from the rumors that the first prince was coming, it is quite surprising that no incidents have occurred. On a night with a crescent moon above the mansion, Adrian went to the forge as he did every day, and finally the day His Highness had to leave arrived. He seemed to want to say something but stopped himself. The man, as usual, paid him no mind. When he thought he had reached the limit, Adrian let out a sigh. I had hoped to see it finished before I left. EGA was speechless at his expectation. He thought to himself, he is feeling very regretful. Then Adrian turned and called out, "Let's go, I heard there's a farewell party tonight, and we have to depart early tomorrow morning." Ija silently watched his back as he faded away. Perhaps that is the reason that he hoped His Highness could see the sword completed by the master swordsmith, even if only for a moment. The next morning, as the sun just reached its peak, Your Highness, Adrian appeared with a curious look from afar. EGA ran over at full speed to report. It seems the master swordsmith has finished the sword. Hearing this, the next person to run at full speed was Adrian. What met his eyes was the veteran man with the sword in his hand. He was intently polishing the entire blade. It is finally complete, glistening under the sun. The man, without saying a word, knelt at Adrian's feet to present the sword. The blade reflected his eyes. I offer this sword. He slowly spoke each word clearly to His Highness. This was something even EGA had never considered. Heating it like the sun rising on the horizon, and cooling it until its hue matches the king's royal robe. If you do so, a sword, like the sun and a king will be born. Excerpts from the Song of the Blacksmiths. He held the sword in his hand. Adrian asked if it had a name. The old man bowed his head with utmost respect. How about calling it sunset? He asked curiously. Is it the sunset of dawn, or the sunset of the late evening? The veteran man replied calmly. To me it is the late evening, but to Your Highness it must be the dawn. Hearing this, Adrian burst out laughing. You are quite clever with your words, aren't you? To a blacksmith. Suddenly, the old man's voice dropped. He let out a long breath. That, he said as he collapsed to the ground in relief. Without warning, the man had fainted. Cast whispered into His Highness's ear. He supported the old man and gave a reminder. Tell my uncle, I think I will stay here tonight. That night, the torches were lit, and alone, Adrian sat inside taking care of the man. The old man seemed to have regained a bit of consciousness. The moment Your Highness stood behind Mikanar, the sword took its form, as if arranged by destiny. The sword decided the day it would be born. He crossed his arms, the corners of his lips curving slightly. Is that what you think? Adrian's expression darkened as if he wanted to say something. Actually, having said that, he leaned over and whispered into the man's ear. Hearing it, the old man jumped in shock. 3 seconds later, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "My God, then you are Adrian." Understanding quickly nodded in confirmation. Therefore, how could I not understand this man's heart? Once he understood everything. The man lying on the bed burst out laughing. He spoke with full contentment. I see. Now I understand. Your Highness, please let me borrow that sword for a moment. He quickly handed the hilt to the man. Here it is. The old man's trembling hands received the sword. Sweat dripped profusely from his face. I pray that this sword will become as great as the person you are. Hearing that, his heart seemed to skip a beat. Adrian grabbed the man's hand and held it firmly. Certainly will be. And then what was meant to happen happened. It seemed the man had reached the end of his road. He had sacrificed himself to create the greatest sword. During the night, that night, Adrian seemed to make a firm promise. The next day, another sword was packed in a box. EGA happily brought it to gift to Adrian. Though one cannot simply discuss the value of a sword created with one's entire soul, I believe it would be inconvenient for your highness to use it. I happen to have this rapier that I wish to offer to your highness. Please accept this as a replacement. Adrian accepted it with a polite smile. It's very good. In his heart, he silently calculated. Even if it's not a top-tier item, but it is a good mid-tier sword. Seeing his interest, EGA felt satisfied. Your highness, so what about that sword? Adrian casually strapped the sword to his hip and replied, the mere fact that a renowned master poured his whole heart into creating it is already an extremely great gift, and yet you still intend to offer an additional magic sword as well? As expected, the loyalty of the Ellen family toward the royal family is truly devoted. EGA was stunned, realized he'd been played, that he could only bow his head and speak. It is the honor of our family. EGA screamed inside his head, tugging at his ears. I intended to use that flashy magic sword as bait to get back the master swordsmith's sword, but now I've just lost a good sword for nothing, and gained nothing at all. 1 month later, in a certain forest, Bill announced to the troops, the carriages and infantry will follow slowly. The cavalry will move ahead at maximum speed. We are behind schedule, so we must hurry. Keep up. They replied in unison, yes, sir. Adrian looked at him hesitantly. He couldn't help but ask, you seem busy, uncle. Thinking back, I didn't see a sign of you during our entire stay in the territory. Bill held his head high and replied, His Majesty assigned me a separate mission. He rubbed his chin with a pensive look. I guess my trip wasn't entirely free, was it? Bill didn't answer, only giving a reminder. All right, get ready quickly. We plan to move swiftly to reach Iron Lion City by tonight, so we'll have to ride horses. Hearing this, Adrian seemed to remember something. Regarding that, I don't know how to ride a horse. He was stunned for a moment. Dozens of eyes were fixed on Adrian. I used to be a sword. How could I possibly know how to ride a horse? Adrian had to force himself to comply, since there was no other choice. The road to Iron Lion City. And of course there were a few unintentional incidents along the way, but his face turned quite pale. Though it wasn't half a day as originally planned, we managed to reach our destination. After about a full day, standing before the city gates, he let out a breath. So this is Iron Lion City? The footsteps of the soldiers moved forward in perfect unison. The young man leading them maintained a respectful attitude. Yull of the Walloden family, greetings to the first prince, your highness. The Iron Lions, greetings to the noble blood of Leonberg. Their reception made him feel a chill. Your energy seems a bit excessive. Adrian's eyes flickered toward the soldiers accompanying him. As for the reason, well, it's quite obvious, isn't it? A fiery thought occurred to him. Should I stir things up a little? From a distance, someone stepped forward, Arwen. Arwen understood His Highness's meaning immediately. She knelt at Adrian's feet to report. I have counted every day just to see your highness again. As soon as she finished, dozens of fiery eyes stared at him. That reaction was quite instantaneous. Suddenly, Adrian Leonberg felt a chill on the back of his neck. From behind him, he hurriedly turned around and met Adelia's gaze. Bayan's hostility is directed toward me. Her master's presence might agitate Adelia. He quickly called out softly, Adelia. She snapped out of it in an instant. Adelia returned to her usual appearance. She nodded respectfully. Yes, your highness. Seeing that, Adrian felt much more relieved. Luckily, I developed her servant nature early on. To avoid wasting time, Adrian turned toward Arwen. Now he gave orders at will. Arwen, follow me. Don't we have a lot in our hearts? Adrian was plotting to provoke them. Things to talk about. It would be even better if those behind you came along too. 1 month later, Adrian had removed his outer coat and went to the training ground. Standing before Arwen's group of fans, he spoke out bluntly. I want to witness the swordsmanship of the Iron Lions, those who are considered the best in this kingdom. Who will show me the swordsmanship of the Iron Lions? All eyes were focused on one person. He followed their gaze accordingly. Seeing that they didn't speak up, Adrian spoke assertively. If my status makes you pressured, I give my word in the name of Leonberg. I guarantee that I will not prosecute anyone, regardless of the outcome of this duel. Still no one, realizing that being normal wouldn't work, he turned to taunting them. I didn't expect the famous Iron Lions to be such cowards. It seems the title of the kingdom's strongest is just empty fame. Hearing these words, a young orange-haired man held his sword and stepped forward. I am Del of the Denon family, and he firmly declared, although I have too many shortcomings to represent the sword of the Iron Lions, but if you allow it, I take the liberty of standing before your highness. He waved his hand, the corner of his lip curving upward. No need to ask for permission. I was the one who made the request first. As soon as he finished, Del strode forward and lunged. Then please be careful. His eyes narrowed with clear sharpness. The two swords clashed, emitting a blue light. Del coughed up red blood from just one contact. Only one move. He was sent flying, sliding a long distance across the ground. Adrian's mana heart burned brightly. Next, Del was knocked out, but others also retreated. Among them, another brave soul, Paolo team. Del is only a first year, but I am already in my third year. Before he could even finish his sentence, his mouth was smashed. Following that were several light blows to Adrian. I'm Hallie, apprentice swordsman of 5 years. Judith, 8th year. The sword of the Iron Lions. Never loses. No, only the sounds of heavy striking echoed in the training ground. About 15 minutes passed. The Iron Lion troops were completely defeated by Adrian. He put on a bored expression. Honestly, now I want to face those official knights. You guys move quite slowly. Adrian called out to Arwen. Hearing that, she stepped forward. Yes, your highness. He smiled and winked. When I return, you will come with me. Arwen paused for a beat. Then she bowed respectfully. As your highness wishes. Suddenly, a man behind them spoke up gloomily. Adrian smirked with satisfaction. It was too easy. The man continued his statement. I heard your highness enjoys wagers. How about a match? A small bet to liven up the atmosphere. If I defeat your highness. Before he could finish, Adrian cut him off and refused. Arwen is not a prize for a tournament. She was deeply moved. Your highness. Adrian dropped the wooden sword directly to the ground and made a different proposal. How about we bet on something else? Instead of that, cast, bring the sword here. He reached out, took the sword and said, if you win, I will give you this sword right here. Arwen was quite surprised by his high stakes. The man was equally startled. She intentionally ran over to stop Adrian Leonberg. Your highness, I should be the one to. He casually interrupted Arwen. You are worth 100 times more than this sword. 1,000 times more. The reason was that he always kept it in his mind. Because the value of a sword master cannot be compared to a mediocre sword. The man nodded excitedly. Very well, your highness. He drew his sword and announced his name, Dunham of the Fahrenheit family. I am an official knight of the Iron Lion Knight Order, and I am on the threshold of reaching the 3rd circle. He gave a casual thumbs up for show. So you mean you're still only at the 2nd circle? He was so angry he was left speechless. Putting that aside, Dunham raised the hilt of his sword high. This sword is the 17th work, made by the artisan known as the Master Swordsmith. If you win, this sword will belong to your highness. He laughed hearing a familiar title. What a coincidence. Adrian quickly drew the sword given to him by the veteran man, and then revealed a classic truth. I also happen to have a sword received from that master. He emphasized every single word. It is his 100th work. Dunham now had a moment of hesitation. I have never heard rumors about that master making a 100th sword. Based on those words, Adrian taunted him even harder. I guess you haven't. It was his final masterpiece, just completed a few days ago. He was now a bit angry. Enough. Even though your highness is walking a misguided path of the sword, I can perceive the relentless efforts invested in that path. The cheesy words only made Adrian more amused. A misguided path, is it? To show a bit of respect for that, I will give my all in this duel. His mana heart flared up once again. How mediocre. This position, from the very beginning, was never something meant to be called my own. The respect directed toward me is the gaze of the people that he has gathered. It can only be described in one way. As long as it comes from my people, that is enough. Then Adrian spoke in a low, soft voice. Adelia watched closely. She was surprised and couldn't react in time. Yes. Huh? Mana like never before erupted from his body. Adrian Leonberg firmly emphasized each word. This path is the path you must walk from now on. Adelia nodded obediently. Yes. The connection between her and Adrian was completed in the blink of an eye. Adelia said with absolute certainty, "I will surely do so, Your Highness." Yahello's room. Smoke rose from the teacup. Bill sat opposite him and asked, "How many times have we visited Iron Lion City?" Yahello crossed his legs and replied, "This is the 4th time." He rubbed his chin, pondering something. According to Bill Van Hart's perception, the 4th prince has no interest in the throne, so he certainly will not come. The 3rd and 5th princes have already dropped by, while the 1st prince was under house arrest. Even the 2nd prince just stopped by, not too long ago. Yahello set his teacup on the table and said, "No matter how bad his reputation may be, cannot be denied that the 1st prince is the legitimate heir to the kingdom." He angrily pointed straight at Bill Van Hart's face. "For letting things get to this point, you must certainly bear a huge responsibility. If the commander of the 3rd Corps had supported the 1st prince even a little, His Highness would not have become so isolated." He lowered his face, listening to all those accusations. "So why is it only now that you are acting like his guardian?" Bill did not deny anything he had just said. "You are not wrong. I indeed used to abandon my own nephew, a man who was not only an incompetent monarch, but also a tyrant. That was my nephew. That one day when I scolded him while he was dead drunk, from some kind of toxic medicinal substance." Adrian angrily shouted insolently, "Are you crazy, uncle?" His face turned bright red with rage. Unable to restrain the resentment in his soul, he lunged at his own uncle with a sword. To Bill at that time, there was only one thought in his head: a useless bastard. When I returned to the north in that disappointment, my nephew sent me poison wine. He shamelessly called it a gift, accompanied by a letter. Bill angrily held the bottle of poisoned wine in his hand. Without thinking for another second, he was determined to drink it all. "When I used mana to burn away that cheap toxin, God knows where he got it from. I also incinerated what little family affection was left along with it. However, that bastard whom I thought would never change is different now. He endures harsh training sessions, and is becoming stronger day by day, returning to reality." Yahello was still questioning with his mouth wide open. "Wasn't it you yourself who said it, that the 1st prince must absolutely never become king?" Bill's teacup reflected Adrian's smile. The boy of the present is a completely different person from before. Because of that thought, he decided to humble himself for once. Please give him a chance, at least so that he can stand at the same starting line as the other princes. Not only that, Bill even bowed his head to Yahello. "I beg of you." He was nearly 70 years old and had never seen such a sight. "I truly cannot understand it. I don't know whether it's you or the 1st prince who has changed. First, please raise your head." A man dubbed the Silver Lion. Before he could finish his sentence, a soldier burst through the door. "Lord Walloden." The two frowned, appearing quite surprised. "The 1st prince is." After receiving the news, Yahello and Bill headed toward the training ground. "There's no need to worry too much. Dunham knows when to stop, so nothing serious will happen." Throughout the walk, he continuously reassured him. Even in a real sword match, surely, he wouldn't strike royalty to the point of losing consciousness. Hearing this, Bill spoke in a serious tone. "The one you should be worried about right now is not the prince, but your knight." He, on the contrary, found it hard to believe. "You have really become strange. Your face is pale and now you're saying such nonsense." Before he could finish his words, a familiar figure was sent flying right to their feet. Yahello recognized the man on the ground instantly: Dunham. By now, the entire training ground was in an uncontrollable uproar. "Even Dunham has been defeated. His Highness has won again." Yahello stood stunned for a long time. "What is happening?" Bill felt a bit awkward yet mixed with pride. "I told you so." Adrian wiped the dried blood from the corner of his mouth. In his eyes, Adrian had changed significantly from the past. "He is not the one you need to worry about." Fired up, he called out loudly, "Next person. My uncle always said, a true knight only begins at the 2nd circle." That is why Adrian fought Dunham with all his might. Throughout the course of the battle, Adrian Leonberg experienced it for himself. Those words were not an exaggeration at all. He also realized one thing: the current battle song is not enough. "But I cannot recklessly use the song of True Dragon's world destruction. on an ordinary night. In that case, system confirms activation of super focus talent. Adrian's mana heart beat wildly in his chest. He clearly traced each hazy step. Everything became silent. His body no longer felt like his own. Adrian's eyes glowed with blue fire. That is exactly the feeling. Just like that moment, the moment before Dunham's sword touched was replayed in his eyes. They clashed, sparks flying everywhere. As a result, Dunham was sent flying meters away. He was exhausted, but more satisfied than anything. As another person collapsed, Adrian's voice rang out accordingly. Next person. It was still those steady, reliable slashes. Sharp sword paths along with a confident smirk. Adrian did not hesitate to knock out his opponents. In just a few brief moves, even as time passed, his strength showed no signs of waning. Adrian even took the opportunity to hone himself. One by one they fell like grass. Adrian didn't spare a single person, fighting hard against everyone. The more he fought, the more spirited he became. Sweat dripped down, soaking the grass. All alone, Adrian had cleared out the lion squad by sunset. He gasped for air to regain his breathing rhythm. Unexpectedly, the soldiers cheered and celebrated that Peterson had been defeated. That was His Highness's 5th consecutive victory, enduring 1,000 fierce waves through 100 battles. I will stand firm even before a wave larger than that. System confirms information. A new melody has been added to the battle song. Only now do I rise with the sword in my hand. System begins upgrading. The rank of the battle song has become extraordinary rank. The battle song changes to suit its rank. The battle song has become the duel song. His mana heart returned to a stable state.
Eva succeeded.
Right now, Adrian was so exhausted he couldn't even stand. As his heavy body fell, hands immediately reached out to catch him. Are you all right, sir? The soldier smiled, sitting in front of Adrian. We wish to express our respect for your highness's victory. Then they all congratulated him in unison. Respect to the first prince's sword. Respect to your fighting spirit. We wish to express our respect for your victory. This strange reaction took Adrian quite by surprise. What is this? Just a moment ago they wanted to tear me apart. Yul finally spoke up to explain. They are simple people by nature. The sword and victory. Nothing excites them more than that. Looking at your face, I bet you thought you would incur their resentment. Bill walked up to him. His eyes were filled with pride. A fair defeat is more valuable than a dirty victory. When both sides have fought with all their might, then whether it's victory or defeat, does it still matter? Being praised like that made them feel a bit of pride. Still, Dunham will probably feel a little regretful. The red-haired youth crossed his arms and laughed. True, because he has to surrender the sword that he was always so proud of to His Highness, followed by endless teasing laughter. It's truly refreshing. He was far too arrogant about that sword. Adrian lowered his head and laughed to himself. I thought everything I knew had been forgotten and discarded, along with my mana heart. But it seems at least one thing hasn't changed. The feeling he thought he had lost, he can now enjoy once again. It is the nobility in defeat, and the respect for the strong, the spirit of the knights. After the cultural and martial exchange, it was time for Adrian to pack up and head back to the palace. But this time he seemed a bit reluctant to leave. Well then, until we meet again. Yul placed his hand on his chest and bowed low in response. I pray you remain in good health until then. He politely followed up. You please take care of your health as well. The Count had only turned his head for 3 seconds when Adrian Leonberg had something else to say. Oh right, Count Waloden. Please keep what happened during my stay here a secret. He tilted his head, expressing his curiosity. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for your highness to make it public? Adrian rubbed his chin, his face showing clear mischief. He thought of his dear sibling waiting at home. There is someone I want to tease a little bit. After leaving Waloden, the procession found a place to stop for a rest. We will camp here tonight. Cast informed Adrian of something. I will go scout the surroundings for a moment. He nodded in approval. Go ahead. Arwen, standing behind, was still staring at Adrian. He turned to look at her, feeling out of place, and thought, Arwen will adapt soon enough. With that said, Adrian Leonberg let out a long yawn and went into his private tent. I should go inside and rest too. To his surprise, Adelia was already waiting there. Your Highness, you've returned. He was speechless at her strange behavior. The person I recruited should have been a swordsmanship genius with S-rank talent, and yet she is still doing tasks meant only for a maid servant. Adelia didn't understand a thing when she saw him sighing. Your Highness, is there something that makes you dissatisfied? Adrian lazily reclined on the bed. No, forget it. You may leave, she replied helplessly. Yes, Your Highness. After Adelia Bayan left, he tiredly thought about what came next. Those Iron Lion Knights are different from what I once thought. When I use the power of judgment, most of the knights normally do not possess talent in swordsmanship exceeding rank B. In the past, these were people who, even after a lifetime of training, harshly, could hardly reach the level of an intermediate swordmaster. Ordinary people who should have faded away in hopelessness, and yet such people have reached a realm equivalent to a sword master when they are only in their 20s or 30s. The foundation that a superhuman possesses has declined, incomparably so, but the foundation of ordinary people has increased significantly. Connecting everything, Adrian sat up immediately. That is precisely thanks to the mana circles. My uncle is a figure who should have been able to aim for the transcendent realm in the past. That is why I was very dissatisfied when he threw away that possibility. However, this era is an era where there isn't even a single chance to build achievements that go beyond the extraordinary rank. In the end, everything is due to the flow of time. I must admit that I do not fully understand this era. The following words were spoken aloud by him, so I will start learning again from the beginning. Suddenly someone heard and spoke from outside. That is a good mindset. Bill clapped his hands loudly, regardless of whether it matched Adrian's thoughts or not. It's still not too late if you put in the effort from now on. You can achieve your dreams. He foolishly wondered to himself, what dream? He ignored that reaction and got straight to the point. Haven't you completely captured the hearts of the Iron Lions? If it were the other princes, they wouldn't have been able to blend in with them so naturally, like that. I don't know what Bill Van Hart was thinking, but his eyes were sparkling as if they had a filter. That was a very wise decision. Adrian obviously didn't understand a thing. Shocked by what? What's wrong with this uncle? He was confused by the poetic words of Uncle Bill. Have you gone mad? He clenched his fists and asked back. Don't you remember the conditions of the bet that I set with you? Adrian went through several bets one by one. If it's the bet about defeating the third prince, then that matter is still. Before he could finish, Bill interrupted him. No, our bet was to defeat a second circle knight. He startled and pointed at himself. Then consider that I've won the bet. Bill strode closer to him. I will fulfill exactly what was promised back then. Adrian still didn't clearly understand the issue he mentioned. Surprisingly, Bill thumped his chest and declared his name. Bill Van Hart, as a Count of the Kingdom and Commander of the Third Corps, I will officially support the first Prince of the Kingdom, Adrian Leonberg. Adrian cursed inwardly. What the hell is he talking about? Official support? His smart brain finally caught up. Don't tell me. Bill Van Hart, looking like the morning sun, gave a firm thumbs up. Just trust me. Adrian screamed wordlessly. When did I ever say I wanted to be king? After that day, with my uncle's declaration, I truly became a heavy-duty bombshell. Everywhere in the castle were words of congratulations. Your Highness, congratulations to you. We sincerely congratulate you. This is truly the joy of the kingdom. The royal knights and the newly dispatched soldiers are causing a commotion, along with the new servants and maids sent from the palace, who are busily walking back and forth. And I suddenly find myself standing in the center of all of this. Adrian angrily pointed out the window and cried out, "This is total chaos. Send them all back immediately." Brother, calm down. Facing his aggressive attitude, even if you order them to leave, they won't listen. Adrian Leonberg grumbled incoherently. Then at least get them out of my sight. This is driving me crazy. Just as he wished. A month later, the window was finally opened. Adrian's ears returned to their usual peaceful state. Finally, some peace and quiet. Isn't this much better? After 3 seconds of comfort, the door swung open. mercilessly. "Elder brother, are you there?" Looking at the youth before him, he asked wearily, "Why are you still here at this hour?" "That person is the third prince, Julian Leonberg. You played your part quite well, secretly learning swordsmanship from Count Van Hart like that, and even revealing such grand ambitions." He still didn't care about the questioning. Learning what from whom? Julian was annoyed by the unconvincing act of playing dumb. "I really intended to save face for you, so how could you do this? I planned to let you lose without too much embarrassment." Adrian rested his chin, looking at him like a brat. "Hey, wonderful. I'm so moved I could cry." Julian's face darkened as he pointed straight at him. "Brother, you have made a very big mistake, because I will make you pay a heavy price for deceiving me. This guy and then that guy too. I already said I have no interest in that throne. I need to find the mastermind behind this." The mastermind was present, and Adrian spoke clearly and earnestly. "So uncle, I will cooperate for a while. So please withdraw at the appropriate time, because I am not interested in things like the throne." He grumbled, clenching his teeth. "Why did you take it upon yourself to start everything, without discussing it with me first?" Bill acted as if he understood, smirking. "Are you worried about the House of Van Hart? Van Hart is the shield, protecting the kingdom from the monsters in the northern mountains." He continued his intense reassurance. "As long as the royalty and nobility do not forget the harshness of winter, then nothing bad will happen to the Van Hart family." He clearly showed his displeasure but continued, "If that is true, then it's a relief." The next words made Adrian reconsider. "It's only a matter of time. It's going to happen anyway. And do you truly not know the fate of an eldest son, who cannot succeed to the throne? The situation will not change, just because you continue to hide. If you need time to accept reality, I will give you as much as you like. However, remember this well. The legitimacy of the eldest son will not disappear, unless you die." Adrian kept muttering even though Bill had already left. "I've already said it. No matter how much time he gives me, I won't change. But what I truly need to find again is the power and strength that reached the transcendent realm. So there's no way I'd want something as mediocre as the right to inherit the throne." I definitely used to think that way. In the royal hall it seemed there was a banquet being held. An announcement echoed throughout the room. The legitimate bloodline of the Leonberg kingdom, the eldest son of the Leonberg royal family. With his appearance, the shout continued to ring. "The first prince, His Highness Adrian Leonberg, is entering." Aside from the gazes as sharp as daggers, were the proud eyes of Bill and Taylor. And of course, the thought of not inheriting continued, until the banquet began. Adrian slowly walked down from the stairs. His face bore the gravity of a prince. Those present at this place began to flatter him with all sorts of words. "Truly incredible. His majestic demeanor is exactly like His Majesty's in his youth." In his heart, Adrian secretly despised what was taking place. "Making such a fuss just because I lost a little weight? Are these the nobles of the kingdom? What a farce." Because the crowd before him all shared the same trait, the heart of a serpent. But Adrian's face was cold as ice. He didn't bother to move even an inch as he stood amidst this crowd. It is the kind of accumulated evil karma of those who specialize in plundering and trampling on the lives of others. Unexpectedly, all of them carry that filth within them. The only person worth paying attention to among them is. He walked past the people who were still discussing him. Seeing the first prince grown up and majestic like this, Adrian went straight toward Taylor and spoke excitedly. "Taylor, if you've arrived, you should come greet me." He also responded warmly, "Your Highness. I apologize, I wanted to thank you for the invitation." Adrian observed Taylor and thought to himself, "Those who might not have talent, but have not been corrupted at all. Yes, that is enough to serve as vessels for the seeds I will sow. From now on." The conversation was momentarily interrupted by the command of a knight. Tension, officially recognized by the Emperor of the Empire. Borgon's power is officially acknowledged. Marquis Montpellier of Bourgogne.
Ambassador ku Eulande Borgone.
Montpellier is entering. Adrian's face momentarily froze upon hearing that name. What? The one appearing is the ambassador of the Bourgogne Empire.
Julien de Bourgogne-Montpellier.
He had a smile on his face, and slowly approached. "Adrian, it has been a long time, Prince." His eyes widened in surprise. Memories of his past life came flooding back. Borgwan, the mortal enemy that my comrades and I fought for a long time, 400 years ago, bearing the name that left countless scars on this land. How dare he stand right before me? A nobleman accidentally tripped and caused the wine in his glass to splash all over someone. Adrian was left soaked just like that. The nobleman hurriedly turned his head to apologize. Your Highness, are you all right? I was in such a hurry to greet Your Highness that I sincerely apologize. Your Highness. Adrian glared at him with eyes as sharp as bullets. However, the truth was his eyes were fixed on Ku Julian. The space gradually fell into a deathly silence. Adrian turned to leave with an announcement. I must go change my clothes. The nobleman bowed his head, admitting his fault. This old body does not listen, so I have committed a great act of insolence. Over here, Cast was already waiting with a towel in hand. Your Highness, let me escort you. Adrian glanced at the man who had just spilled wine on him, then wondered who he was. Cast looked over and quickly replied, that is Marquis Billiford. Adrian took the towel and wiped himself as he left. A smirk appeared on his lips. Billiford, huh? Turns out not all of them are rotten, and thanks to that, my head has cooled down a bit. Night fell very quickly. Only he remained, sitting alone in the dark. The door opened once again, and the person who stepped in was none other than Bill. I heard an incident just occurred. There was worry on his face. Bill stepped closer while explaining. Marquis Billiford said you looked like you were about to cause a major scene. It seems he wasn't entirely talking nonsense, was he? Bill sat down in the chair next to Adrian. What on earth are you planning to do? Only then did he speak up to explain. I haven't lost my mind to that extent. It's just that I can't understand it. The Bhagwan family is insidious, flaunting their power right in the heart of the kingdom, while the nobles show him sincere respect, something they don't even grant the royal family. The atmosphere is too tense to be called peace, and the relationship is too forced to be called an alliance. A question was posed by him, with a face full of tension. In the end, why did the country fall into such a state? The subject caused Bill to fall into deep thought as well. It wasn't any particularly special history, but in the past the kingdom resiliently resisted countless invasions by the empire. Excellent knights stepped forward to repel the empire. However, as time passed, the empire grew stronger and stronger, and the gap continued to widen. Before an empire that had become a superpower, the kingdom, in the end, had no choice but to kneel. But hearing this, Adrian's eyes suddenly widened, as if he had understood something. Don't tell me, is it because of that the story continued to be told? Despite being a small nation on the edge of the continent, the kingdom once possessed something that helped them face the powerful empire. Since the time of its founding, accumulated feats without a single flaw. Some were ordinary, some were extraordinary. Sometimes they were heroic tales. Sometimes they were legends, and even mythical battle hymns. Adrian saw the blue energy in his hand, and pensively thought, we have lost all of those things. After a moment he spoke up again. Uncle, I've changed my mind. Bill was a bit confused by this sudden statement. What do you mean? Adrian placed a hand on his chest and declared, becoming king. I will give it a try. Bill could not hide the surprise on his face. However, Adrian himself had already begun to think about taking action. How to achieve that goal? Perhaps I will regret this decision, but this is something I must do. The time continues to flow, even while he is still lost in thought. After all, half of this country was built by my own hands. The second day of the banquet, Adrian, in a completely new outfit, walking along the corridor. The announcement of his arrival rang out majestically. The first prince, His Highness Adrian Leonberg, is entering. Lord Bill of the Northern Count Van Hart is entering. Adrian's face was cold as ice as he entered. Today, no one dared to step closer to strike up a conversation. Adrian looked at the nobles before him and thought, sloppy etiquette, to the point. It doesn't even match the treatment of a foreign noble. His expression didn't change even a little. Yet, old memories were being recalled in his mind. In the past, when my friend stood before the people, no one thought that he would become king, because he was just a country boy, coming from some remote village. Even among those who were stripped of everything and driven away, he wasn't anyone noble. His steps were slow but full of certainty. His story was written from just that first, single step. Even so, that young man stepped forward before all the people. Adrian connected with the present just like me right now. Blue energy surrounded him as his voice was raised. "O you who have eyes but do not see." That energy quickly spread throughout the room. Adrian's expression at this moment was one of excitement. "Before the flock of sheep I stand tall. I sing aloud the monarch's song. Current ability cannot meet the rank of the battle hymn. A portion of the battle hymn is omitted, singing only one stanza of the battle hymn, equivalent to 1/4. Under the pressure of this power on his body, Adrian couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Compared to the song of True Dragon's World, Destruction, it's not unbearable, because this battle hymn is only at heroic rank, not mythical rank. His eyes suddenly widened. However, there is no battle hymn more suitable for the current situation. At this moment a figure appeared from the crowd. The nobles, each showed an expression of astonishment. The music had transformed into a suit of armor just for Adrian. "This is enough for now. You may lift your heads." Before he could finish his sentence, something from behind caught his attention. Adrian's eyes quickly turned back. This aura, a mysterious elf, spoke up. "How surprising. To think there is still someone who remembers the battle hymn." Adrian's eyes widened with a look of horror. "That's not just an elf. That woman is. Why is that crazy woman here? The most beautiful creation the gods ever made. A kind-hearted race that never needlessly kills even a tiny living being. The gardeners of the ancient forest, with a lifespan of 300 to 1,000 years. That is the image of elves in everyone's mind. But in reality, they are a brutal lot, using beauty as bait to destroy their enemies. Those called high elves, born with the quality of heroes, are even more dangerous. Furthermore, she is not just at the level of a normal high elf, someone who has lived nearly 1,000 years. An elven elder, the high elf magic swordsman dancing on the battlefield. Sigrun, a member of the subjugation team, who decapitated the mad dragon 400 years ago, and at the same time, Sigrun, being perverted back then, raised her question. "If your master dies, do you want to come with me? I will make sure you never know boredom for the rest of your life." She smiled, touching Rohan's true form at that time, a sword, and then affectionately spoke. "Even if you are a sword, so what? Precisely because you are a sword, I crave you even more. The crazy woman who tortured me to a terrible extent. Just remembering it is enough to make the current Adrian shudder with fear. Could she have recognized me already? And right when I just finished reciting the monarch song, which she also knows very well." Sigrun approached and spoke up. "Have we met somewhere before?" Adrian, standing opposite her, frantically shook his head. Seeing that, she muttered a question back. "That's strange. Why does it feel so familiar?" He slowly approached Sigrun and spoke. "This is the first time I've seen an elf with my own eyes." The other noble members also slowly approached Sigrun. "It's truly real." She placed her hand on her chin, looking thoughtful. Then she coldly declared a statement enough to make Adrian freeze, stiffly. Liar. In his heart he thought to himself, 400 years ago, Sigrun was already a top-tier powerhouse in her sword life, so there's no telling what kind of monster she has become by now. At this point, Sigrun finally spoke out her thoughts. Human reactions, when seeing an elf for the first time, usually fall into two categories. The vast majority of people will be enchanted, but those of a high realm will become wary. She reached her hand forward, nearly touching Adrian. "However, from what I see." Then she leaned in close with a remark. "Your Highness doesn't seem to have reached a realm that high yet." Adrian pushed her finger away while replying. "It's just that my aesthetic taste is a bit different from others." This action made Sigrun's expression darken. In the blink of an eye, she put on her hood and turned to leave. "I am glad to have met you, even if only for a moment." Only now did Adrian allow himself to breathe a sigh of relief. One hurdle cleared for now. Then remarks rang out as girls appeared one after another. "So young, and this one seems like he doesn't want to meet my eyes." Then another person followed, being called forward. "Is she here to challenge me?" Following behind was a young girl. "I told you she was too young." There were even women, with various expressions. not interested at all. The queen looked so exhausted she could barely sit upright. Adrian, standing beside her, felt the same. She turned to him and began lecturing. This is the selection for the crown princess. You shouldn't expect them to be the same as the women you usually encounter. Inherently, a crown princess must be virtuous, intelligent, healthy, and have a strong family background. To their surprise, at that moment, an announcement rang out from outside. Your Majesty, the Elven delegation requests an audience. The queen nodded in approval. Very well. The person appearing was none other than Sigrun. She bowed respectfully in greeting. Sigrun of the Mistletoe tribe greets the beautiful Queen Margarita. The queen, on the opposite side, responded with a gentle smile. Likewise, it has been a very long time since the elves visited the kingdom. It truly surprises me. Sigrun did not beat around the bush, but asked directly. It seems your Majesty is looking for a match for His Highness. Is that right? The queen had no intention of hiding it, exactly as you surmised. Upon hearing that, she immediately stated her case. I am a high elf. In human terms, I can be considered a noble from an ancient house. Adrian stood aside, only able to laugh dryly and think. Wait, what is she planning to say? Sigrun continued to act innocent, and coincidentally, my age isn't that much different from His Highness's. Only Adrian himself knew the truth. Liar. A difference of nearly 1,000 years and you say not much? How can she tell such a fabricated lie, so shamelessly without blushing? Sigrun said, I hear beautiful eternal elves are the ideal life partners for humans. Plus, there are always those standing by to serve me. In human terms, it's equivalent to a knight order. Actually, from the first moment I saw your highness, I felt that my destiny was intertwined with yours. Adrian was lost in thought by this move of hers. Elves never lie about their destiny and fate. Were those words just now all true? Hearing this, the queen was also left agape, pondering. The result is truly bold. One declaration was enough to make the nobles stir and discuss among themselves. Come to think of it, I heard elves value destiny highly. So, is there about to be a marriage alliance with the elves? Oh my god. This time, Adrian couldn't hold back and acted immediately. He grabbed Sigrun's wrist, then, without saying another word, immediately dragged her away. We need to talk privately for a moment. The nobles watched and commented with annoyance. Truly an insolent fellow. The room door was quickly shut. Adrian turned to look at the person beside Sigrun, and didn't beat around the bush, asking directly, state your true purpose. Sigrun had a smile on her face. I only came for the sake of friendship between my clan and the kingdom. Adrian also laid his cards on the table with her. I'm asking again, Elven Elder Sigrun, the executioner who has carried the clan's bloodlust for hundreds of years, the sword of the Mistletoe clan. He raised the question, is your purpose spying or carrying out a sentence? This time, Sigrun didn't hide it either and broke into a smile. Interesting. How do you know about me? Adrian's face gradually became tense. He observed the killing intent radiating from Sigrun, and then silently evaluated. With my current self, she is a monster that cannot be measured. The fact that she sensed destiny from me means her rank is high, enough to see glimpses of the past, engraved in my soul. Sigrun questioned him neither quickly nor slowly. Every word carried a threat. Since you know I am an executioner, and yet you don't know that keeping silent in front of me is a foolish act. To what extent? Adrian had a smirk on his face. I know very well that it is just as foolish as letting one's mouth slip in front of an executioner. Adrian changed the subject. Let's end the jokes here. Sigrun, do not interfere with my destiny. In his heart, he was calculating. Currently, she is only feeling a bit curious about me. At this rate, the destiny of a small human will be torn apart by the hands of that crazy elf. In that case, it's better to spark a greater interest from her, instead, to become something that cannot just be tasted and thrown away, but a delicacy that needs to be aged before slowly being savored. Sigrun slowly approached. Her face showed excitement while observing Adrian. Who are you, after all? He maintained a calm attitude and replied, my current self is just a pitiful prince, abandoned by my own father. Sigrun asked back, confused, then what about your true self? Only to receive a vague answer. Who knows? The corners of Adrian's lips curled into a smile. If you want to know, just wait and see. This domineering statement of his made Sigrun fall silent. Then she spoke up with a remark. No wonder I found it strange, wondering why they sent me on this trivial mission for no apparent reason. But now I understand. Turns out it's because of you. Adrian turned pale. Weariness was evident on his face. Truly a woman who always gives people the creeps. They returned to the room, where the nobles and the queen were waiting. The sight of the two holding hands made the crowd gasp. Adrian stopped in front of the queen. He spoke seriously. I have something to say. I will get engaged to Sigrun. Adrian himself did not expect those words could come out of his own mouth. Unexpectedly, to think there would be a day I'd call that name so affectionately, like that. For now, I cannot go against Sigrun's interest. The queen, taken aback, asked again. Engaged to an elf? In his heart, Adrian was silently calculating. Though I can buy some time. This is a major matter. It cannot be decided in a hurry, so I want to take some time to get to know each other first. The queen tilted her head, cautiously calculating. Very well, that is fine. In his head, Adrian was thinking that for the queen, this is time to calculate the benefits of this marriage. For Sigrun, this is time for the dish named me to ripen, and for me it will be the time to nurture my strength to escape from this crazy elf. A powerful hand slammed down so hard it knocked over a teacup. Damn it! A loud curse echoed throughout the room. That bastard. He clearly has nothing over me except being born first. Yet he dares to act superior. Julian's face was now bright red with rage. Remembering Adrian's actions, he was so angry he saw stars. Lately, not only did Uncle suddenly declare his support, but he even plucked the flower of the Iron Lions. And now he even dares to touch the elves. I thought women and girls were just beautiful at most, but I didn't expect the elf race to have a presence far beyond imagination. Julian smirked and muttered with an air of self-importance. That's right, I have a practice match scheduled with him soon. Killing him would cause too much trouble. Better to just land a few slashes. So he can't even be a man anymore, and that'll be it. I will trample you miserably under my feet. A knight was already waiting. His voice rang out. This practice match is notarized by me, the commander of the Royal Knight Order, the one granted the glorious title of the Silver Lion. Duke Stewart, I declare, no one will be able to object to the result of this match. Princes, please draw your swords. Adrian stood to one side, letting out a lazy yawn. It's just a duel. Why so many words? Julian drew his sword with immense pride. I have prepared quite a lot for you, brother. I brought quite an audience. Are you satisfied? His words were incredibly provocative. I hope you won't disappoint the people who came to watch. Adrian replied in a calm voice. I saw them earlier. You talk too much. Julian roared in a fit of rage, hurling an insult. After this match is over, I hope you still have the strength to chatter like you are now. Adrian, seeing him rush in to attack, spoke in a cold voice, replying, I originally intended to toy with you for a bit. He moved swiftly with a single strike, ending the match, but now I'm a little busy. Julian fell straight to the ground, without being able to react in time. Every single spectator was struck with surprise. Even the person supervising the match had his eyes wide open in shock. Is that truly the first prince that I used to know? That Adrian didn't change his expression from beginning to end. Not even a little bit. He sheathed his sword. At this moment, Duke Stewart slowly spoke up. As the notary and supervisor of this match, I judge that the third prince cannot continue to compete. The winner is the first prince. Adrian cast a sharp glance behind him. His face was tense as he muttered a remark. So many people calling themselves nobles flock here to watch children fighting like this? Those nobles were now whispering and discussing with each other. Did Prince Julian really lose? He is a promising peak second circle of the kingdom. How could he lose to the first prince, who only started training a few months ago? Julian woke up with his head covered in bandages. He nearly jumped up with a curse. That damn useless bastard. Then he moved and flung the room door wide open. Get ready, I'm going back to have a decisive battle with him. From behind, a call rang out, interrupting his actions. Your Highness, the knight explained neither quickly nor slowly. The first prince has already left the capital with Count von Hart. Right as the match ended, Julian impatiently asked back, left? To where? He confusedly replied, regarding that, I heard he is headed north to the residence of the Van Hart family. Bill, riding beside Adrian, had to remark, "You can ride a horse quite proficiently now." He smiled and replied to him, "Once you've grasped these things, you'll learn very quickly, right?" This smug attitude from his nephew made Bill grimace. "I misspoke. You should learn a bit of humility. But why the sudden rush? The banquet has only just ended. Aren't you going to rest for a few days?" Adrian explained, neither quickly nor slowly, "Because there is no place for me in the capital. I have no intention of begging for support from those who don't recognize the master of their own country, and only know how to flatter the empire's hunting dogs. Compared to the nobles, the soldiers and knights will suit me better. Isn't that right?" Bill, beside him, stated, "They may not be as good at calculating as the nobles, but they are much more steadfast. Do you think winning their hearts is an easy task?" Hearing this, a smile appeared on Adrian's lips. "Once we go through life and death together, feelings will eventually develop. What is there to worry about?" Bill then voiced his own thoughts. "I still can't shake the feeling that you are in too much of a hurry." Adrian thought to himself about that. "If I hesitate any longer, then I'll end up having to marry that crazy woman. In the past, everyone she set her eyes on met a doomed end. Before that happens, I must increase my strength first. That is impossible in the peaceful capital, so I am forced to leave. The place to push my development and sharpen my sword is elsewhere, where human character is tested the most, where the most battle hymns are born. The place I need to go is the battlefield," Bill announced as they arrived at a different location. "That mountain over there is the Blade Mountain Range, the border that my family has spent their entire lives guarding." Adrian shivered as the wind blew past him. "It's freezing to death." Seeing this, he kindly reminded him, "If you can't stand it, go inside the carriage and sit." Adrian immediately shook his head. "No need. I have to get used to this cold anyway." And from inside the carriage, the voice of another man rang out, "It seems I am being a nuisance. This old man is taking up a carriage meant for everyone." Adrian looked at the old man with curiosity. "Why did you follow us anyway?" "There's nothing to see," Nicolo excitedly explained. "If not now, when else will I have the chance to witness this rugged, northern region with my own eyes? Furthermore, the book I'm about to write will surely be useful to your highness." Adrian was annoyed by this attitude. Troublesome old man. His gaze shifted to another side. It stopped on Arwen. Adrian slowly approached and asked with concern, "Arwen, are you all right? Sitting up front must be very cold." She quickly turned her head and tried to deny it. "I'm fine." Adrian looked at her trembling body and replied, "If you're tired, you can switch shifts at any time." Arwen firmly refused. "As a knight, how can I seek personal comfort?" This attitude made him satisfied, remarking, "Having someone with such burning spirit is a good thing." Arwen's face flushed as she moved in silence. Adrian then glanced behind him. On the contrary, it seems the people forced to follow by royal order are very dissatisfied. If Caste were here, he would have disciplined them already. The reason this happened is because the king previously requested. The royal knights are not your personal knights. Don't you also have many knights directly under you? Though I still doubt whether you truly consider them knights or not. Adrian was angered by these words of his. This narrow-minded old man. It's for that reason Caste couldn't follow to the north. No matter how many crazy things this body has done, he is still his own flesh and blood. But the king's attitude seems a bit excessive. There must be some hidden story I don't know about. Bill saw the snow starting to fall more heavily and immediately urged them on. "We must speed up. If we don't hurry, we'll be trapped by the blizzard, unable to move forward or backward." The snowflakes soon turned into a blizzard. The march was so harsh, to the point you couldn't hear the voice of the person right next to you. Bill looked back anxiously. He quickly ordered them to abandon the carriages, keep only the horses and move on foot. Adrian looked around and silently noted the shout used mana, then signaled to the person inside the carriage. "Adelia." Adelia quickly took his hand. "Your Highness, thank you." Adrian replied softly, "All right." Arwen anxiously ran close. "Your Highness, are you okay?" Adrian replied calmly,
infine.
The others are in a frenzy over there, be careful, not to collide. Wait a second, the wind is too strong. Adrian acted quickly and didn't forget to give instructions. Arwen, take care of Adelia. Arwen took the order with a yes, your highness. He stepped closer and demanded, you idiots, drop your shields. Holding a shield that big, of course the wind will blow you away. Aside from your swords, throw away everything bulky. We can come back for them later. You, the big guy over there. The leader, line up in a single file. The other knights observed how Adrian acted and couldn't help but exclaim, it seems we don't need to step in. I plan to perform a small welcome ceremony and help later. Does His Highness the Prince have actual combat experience? Every step in the blizzard was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Everyone pushed forward step by step. Suddenly, someone collapsed. An announcement quickly reached Adrian's ears. Your Highness, a soldier has fallen behind. He moved almost instantly, get out of the way, and then grabbed the fainted man's collar. Adrian just carried him on his shoulders like that, then barked out gruffly, what are you doing? Why aren't you moving quickly? They could only obediently follow, yes, Your Highness. The group continued toward the castle ahead. Adrian breathed heavily, as that hellish march neared its end. Everyone's footsteps were exhausted. Adrian let himself drop to the ground. He looked ahead and muttered a remark. This damn blizzard. If you're gonna stop, then hurry up and stop. The sky turned clear blue as if nothing had ever happened. Bill slowly stepped forward. Only then did he stop. Then he slowly turned his head as a flag was raised. Bill spoke neither quickly nor slowly. As the rightful master of Van Hart and the commander of the kingdom's 3rd Legion, I welcome the visit of the first prince. Adrian had an excited expression upon hearing those words. Bill smiled and declared, sincere welcome to Winter City. This is Winter Castle, the fortress located at the northernmost point of the kingdom. I exist to block the monsters living on the Blade Mountains. A weak point used to fight against monsters. The gruff knights were swearing loudly, oh boy, if that spot opens up, the monsters will pour down again. Cold, harsh, and dangerous. The survival rate is also very low. That is a place where I absolutely do not want to go a second time. The worst workplace for ordinary soldiers. Even the noble women were noisily discussing it. Winter Castle is perhaps the greatest weapon, and also the greatest shackle of the Van Hart family. From the start, that cold and rugged land, what could possibly be worth seeing there? The nobles throughout the world can gauge the political position of Winter Castle, but the massive gates were pushed open once more. From within, a figure with black hair appeared. To those born and raised in Van Hart, it is a place that becomes a duty and a pride that they must carry for a lifetime. This young man placed his hand on his chest and declared in a loud voice,
Vincent van Hart.
Starting today, I shall conclude my mission as acting commander and return to being the captain of the Ranger Company. It is a relief that father has returned safely. Bill placed a hand on his son's shoulder and continued, you have worked hard, Vincent. From behind, a questioning voice rang out, full of teasing intent. What's this? Uncle, you have a son too? Bill glanced back while replying. Just how old do you think I am? That you thought I wouldn't have a single child? Adrian pointed at Vincent's face and continued. Looking closely, there is a slight resemblance, especially that stubborn-looking corner of the mouth. Bill began the introduction. Hey Vincent, this is His Highness First Prince Adrian. Vincent bowed his head in greeting. Captain of the Ranger Company, Vincent of the Van Hart family. I seek your guidance, Your Highness First Prince. This disciplined action of his made him very satisfied. Very nice to meet you. The truth was that, in his heart, Vincent was constantly feeling dissatisfied. Winter Castle is a fortress for true warriors, who dare to sacrifice their lives for a noble belief. It is not a place for a scoundrel, driven out of the capital, bringing along women to loiter around. A knight of this place suggested to Adrian, Your Highness, my father will show you around the castle. He accepted the goodwill, all right. As for Vincent, he was so angry the veins on his face bulged. Why did father bring along someone like that? Father, what on earth is going on? Bill replied in a soft voice, it is exactly as you heard. I have decided to become Adrian's patron, and Adrian will stay at Van Hart for a while. The more he heard, the more unconvinced he became. Isn't he just a discard that His Majesty threw away? Didn't you also used to criticize him as a useless piece of trash, with such a foul nature? This remark of his made Bill look to the side. He simply offered a gentle observation. People eventually change, followed by a word of caution. I only have one thing I want to tell you, Vincent. Watch him without holding onto any prejudices. Very soon they moved to a different room. The clearing of the monster settlements. How is it progressing? Vincent was the one representing the report. During the past time we have continuously eliminated them, but there are still quite a few places not yet cleared out. Now that Father has arrived, I intend to take official action. Bill continued to ask about other matters. Then what about the remaining forces? He quickly replied, the Ranger Company, placing a finger on a piece on the map, with a different tone. The problem is the orcs. A small-scale group of orcs under 20 in number have occupied the mountain pass area. Bill, after hearing that, responded quickly. If it's that scale, then using only the Ranger Company's arrows will make it very difficult to resolve. Vincent nodded in confirmation. Yes, therefore currently, I am filtering out the knights stationed in the castle. Unexpectedly at this moment, Adrian interrupted the conversation with a declaration. Let me take care of this matter. Just one statement from him was enough to make the whole room stir with objections. Your Highness, the orcs in the Blade Mountains are very different from ordinary orcs. If something goes wrong, even the Ranger Company's campaign will be affected. At this moment, Adrian looked back and asked for Bill's opinion. Uncle? He understood and turned to Vincent. Vincent, the scale and combat power of the orcs. How much has been confirmed? He presented the report in extreme detail. According to confirmation, up to now there are a maximum of 20. The presence of orc warriors or orc mages has not yet been confirmed, but it cannot be confirmed that they are not there either. Next, Bill turned to ask Adrian directly, are you confident? These words of his made Vincent so surprised that he slammed the table and stood up. Father, the mountain pass is one of the main paths that the Rangers frequently use. If that place accidentally becomes a battlefield with the orcs, then future tasks will be more difficult by many times over. Furthermore, if anything happens to His Highness's safety, then the position of Van Hart will also. Adrian, listening on the side, could only chuckle to himself. You raised your children quite smartly. However, Bill's decision was clear. That's enough worrying. What do you need? Adrian began to present his battle plan. First, prepare about 3 guides. Change my troops' equipment a bit. If there are crossbows, lend us some as well. Bill nodded in confirmation. That request is not difficult at all. I will prepare it that way. Only Vincent, from beginning to end, completely, did not believe what was happening before his eyes. The soldiers quickly received the announcement. Let's move out. One of them asked back, confused. What are you saying? Adrian spoke in a calm voice. We have received the mission to subjugate the orcs. The number of enemies is 20 orcs. Warriors or mages may or may not be present. The knight scratched his head and replied with a tired, confused look. Your Highness, the 3rd Legion is already here, so why are we? Our mission is to protect your Highness. And this response gave him even more reasons to counter-argue. Isn't that great? Anyway, in order to protect me, you have to follow along regardless. The 3rd Legion will be in contact sometime today. Therefore, go get your equipment and report back to me. At this point, they could only obediently follow. Yes, Your Highness. Adrian glanced back and silently evaluated. No matter what, these are the soldiers I was granted, so I must train them to be useful. During the blizzard, they didn't look very reliable, but, after all, they are elites carefully selected by the royal family. Their abilities are quite good. The information of this person is being displayed. Characteristics of Hans Deck: swordsmanship, tactics, siege defense, infantry formation. Though there is one guy who looks a bit suspicious mixed in. A new day arrived quickly. The time for the conquest has struck. Adrian looked at Vincent in front of him and exclaimed in disbelief. The guide is that person. This attitude of his made the opponent a bit uncomfortable. Perhaps Your Highness does not know, but if this campaign fails, there will be obstacles greater than you think. Adrian simply replied nonchalantly, it won't fail. He was irritated by these words. You are thinking far too simply. The two of them radiated clear ill will toward each other. An information panel appeared in front. Adrian read the text and silently evaluated. The status window cannot be viewed. Is he at least a third circle knight? In the group at the back, only one is an actual ranger. The rest are all knights, all disguised as ordinary rangers. They probably plan to take over and handle things themselves. If anything goes wrong, well, I'll turn a blind eye to this level of interference for now. Adrian turned around and signaled. So, Adelia, I won't be taking you along, so don't worry about it. His words made her feel a bit sad. I'm sorry, Your Highness, but the truth is Adrian was worrying about himself. Because if her traits develop incorrectly, the one in trouble would be me. They began their march. Vincent repeatedly gave reminders. We must pace ourselves and save our stamina as much as possible. If your stamina drops, your limbs will freeze, and fighting will become very difficult, especially in a place where snow and ice accumulate, like these Blade Mountains. This sword. You all must pay even closer attention to your steps. Furthermore, Adrian's face soon turned dark as a pot's bottom. This guy is even wordier than his father. The silhouette of a rabbit appeared from the bushes. Adrian saw those around him grow alert and thought to himself, a rabbit? Under the observation of binoculars, they very quickly located the monster's position. Several aggressive orcs were having a meal. Vincent's scout became serious. He turned his head back and signaled. There is a group of orcs ahead. What will you do, sir? Adrian raised a hand in response. The knights quickly moved into position. Load! The orc turned its head when it heard movement. Adrian stepped toward the monsters. An evil smile spread across his face. Hey, long time no see. The command was swiftly given. Fire! Arrows flew straight into the orcs' bodies. Adrian moved into a combat-ready stance. The sound of thundering footsteps rang out. His gaze became sharp. As he slowly drew his weapon, Adrian rushed toward the orc in front of him. A growl full of killing intent, and Adrian broke into a delighted smile. As he prepared to plunge into the fight, he delivered the first slash with great power. The stench of blood splattered everywhere. Adrian continued to press forward. His face was filled with extreme excitement. The thing I have always missed and craved. Excellent. This is truly the atmosphere of a battlefield. Arwen rushed closer with a warning. Your Highness, it's very dangerous. However, Adrian raised his voice to stop her. Don't come here. These words caused Arwen to freeze for a moment in surprise. Adrian was completely focused on the battle. There was a smile on his face, because if she accidentally got caught up in it, it was a time more than 400 years ago, and even longer than that. It was an era where orcs were not just monsters, but one of the rightful masters of this continent. This is not a mythical or heroic song. It belongs to a man who didn't even leave a name behind in history. The song of a poor man who hated orcs. It is the sorrowful elegy of a father who fought to the very end, until his strength was exhausted, piling up green corpses like a mountain. The ephemeral song of an extraordinary avenger. Beneath it, a pool of bright red blood was created. I sing the song of vengeance. A pouch of money was suddenly thrown down violently. Joseph hurriedly said, I heard Winter Castle is a place where people lose their lives at the slightest slip. On the other hand, the man remained calm and reassured him. Don't worry too much. There won't be any actual fighting. The Count began to mock that trashy prince. What could he possibly achieve there? Without looking, I know he intends to hide in the castle to steal credit from his maternal uncle. Then his tone gradually became smug. The important thing is not that trash, but Van Hart. Keep an eye on the movements of Winter Castle. If anything is suspicious, report it to me. In this corner, Joseph slightly tightened his grip on the money pouch. The opponent questioned him once more. Can you do it? And before long, he replied, I will do my best, sir. The Count gradually returns to the present. Joseph is absolutely terrified. I clearly heard that it was a lie. Before his eyes now is a frenzied orc. This is completely different from what I was told. Arwen shouted loudly, First row, maintain formation and move forward. Just as she finished her words, the orc began to attack them. In the middle of the critical situation, Joseph stood frozen out of pure fear. Damn it, what should I do? Commands continued to ring out, forcing him to swing his spear. Second row, do not attack. Only a moment after the thrust did Joseph slowly open his eyes. The orc immediately filled his vision. It had no effect at all. Joseph himself, overcome by fear, hurriedly dropped his weapon. It's over. At that moment, the person behind him suddenly dashed forward, taking advantage of the monster's distraction. Arwen acted quickly. Right as she lunged past the orc, she sliced off one of its arms, collapsed right under her blade. Even the severed arm scared him into stepping back. As for Arwen, she reminded him sternly, "This is a battlefield. Don't drop your weapon so carelessly." Joseph hurriedly nodded, "Yes," and following that, a group of soldiers began to surround Arwen. She pointed her blade at the orcs and told the whole unit, "Prepare for combat." After giving the command, Arwen felt a bit apprehensive. The numbers are quite large. With the current number of people, it seems difficult to deal with them all. Suddenly her eyes turned stunned by the pungent smell of blood. The orc in front was also suddenly pierced through. Their screams rang out, making Joseph's face turn pale. Even the other soldiers were shocked stiff. As for Arwen, she was completely taken by the sight of the blood. On the other hand, Adrian was casually withdrawing his sword from the target. The orc's body fell heavily along with the tense atmosphere. At that very moment, the flame of thirst within Adrian flared up even more. Feeling that something was strange, Arwen tried to ask, "Your Highness?" However, he didn't answer and only slowly raised his head. In the next moment, Adrian dashed away despite the cries of "Your Highness." In return, each of his footsteps was incredibly urgent. In his heart, Adrian reminisced about old battles. Still not enough. Back then, the master had used him to strike down the orcs. No matter how many were killed, without stopping there, he struck down another. And killing even more was still not enough. Even so, that person's face held only apathy, relentlessly searching for the blood of the enemy. Adrian remembered his aura bit by bit. That man had wandered across the barren lands ruled by the orcs. An aggressive orc swung its axe down, but he leaped high into the air. Taking this opportunity, that person directly incinerated it. After finishing it off, he leisurely walked on. By then, the snow beneath his feet was stained. The mana in his heart had long since been depleted. That person's body was both staggering and glowing a fiery red. Even so, he did not stop. Little by little, he lifted his face again, drinking the blood and chewing the flesh of the orcs. And in an instant his hair had turned white. With every step, that man gradually became old and weak. The magic sword in his hand supported him, and was burning away the little life he had left. For that man's final wish, those who were slaughtered, to the point that not even a fragment of a corpse remained. As the one who witnessed it all, his face darkened with horror, along with a stained picture. That was the soul-soothing ritual for his wife and daughter. Returning to the battle, that person immediately glared, and finally, his attention focused entirely on a red flag. As he faced the sworn enemy of his life, his body had become battered and full of wounds. That person suddenly broke into a weak smile. Then in the next second he charged like a wild beast. Facing the orc lord, he directly closed in on it. For the first time he tried to attack its head. However, the orc lord easily caught him. Then it used its strength to squeeze and slam him down. His entire body slammed hard into the snow. That critical blow left him stunned. There was no longer any chance. A moment later, the orc lord slowly raised its fist, leaving behind the warrior who was now motionless. But that man did not give up. Until the very last minute, he tried to take every weak breath. At the same time, his vision gradually blurred. Never told to anyone. In the end, he did not utter a word. It was a story that no one knew. While in his hand, Ruhan lay quietly still. Perhaps I am the only person who remembers all of those things. The memory, suddenly cutting off, made Adrian startle as well. Around him, now there were only the massive corpses of orcs. Suddenly, Adrian heard a familiar movement nearby. Turning his gaze over, he realized the battle was still ongoing. Knights, block the orcs. The rest of you, contain them. Adrian's palm quickly tightened. A spark flashed in his eyes at the same time. I remember now, finally a fresh emotion. The frantic flame surged up. The song of vengeance is an unfinished song. Then Adrian began to tell himself, I must complete this song. With that determination, he struck down one orc after another. Having just dealt with 3 in a row, Adrian headed straight over like an arrow. He stabbed it straight in the stomach, blood gushing out. But Adrian remained as expressionless as at the start. A new verse has been added to the Song of Vengeance. The lyrics echoed in his head. Pile the withered corpses into a high mountain. Beneath, a pool of red blood gradually accumulates. Singing to this point, Adrian suddenly muttered, "And I stand before that place." He stood before the orc, along with the echoing Song of Vengeance. "And I stand before that place, in memory of your soul." Only when it ended did the system report the news. The Song of Vengeance has changed into the Song of Soul Soothing. As his spirit gradually returned, Adrian glanced around. Very quickly, he saw the silhouettes of Bill and Vincent behind him, and then their flag was seized, breaking the flag of the orcs. Vincent did not hesitate to declare, "The orcs have been completely annihilated." At the same time he thought, "I declare victory." As soon as he finished, Vincent continued to shout, "This is our victory." On the other hand, Adrian became curious about that man's name. Looking at the boy, he recalled, "It's Vincent Van Hart, if I recall correctly, the successor of the family, who saw the war against monsters as a lifelong mission, the one who sacrificed his life in the past, with the desire to exterminate all orcs." Adrian began to feel doubtful. To have the same name as that poor avenger? Back then, that person whispered, "Even if there is a next life," his tone grew more determined. "I definitely will." That very thought made him exclaim, "How strange this coincidence is."